Copyright 2012 LiveEastChange.com. 1 page. Preface. I am so pleased to be able to share the information in this ebook with you. It has been put together to inspire and support those who are ready to create a new world by living as the change. The aim of this ebook is to inform, inspire and support those who believe in a better world and quality of human experience. It's for those who believe that the responsibility of a better world lies in the hands of we the people. As soon as we allow ourselves to see the bigger picture, we are more able to take the relevant action within our individual lives, which allows us to break free from the imposed limitations of a broken paradigm. The information which I am about to share with you has been gathered from my personal experiences and several years spent searching for hidden truths and connecting the dots between the apparently unconnected. In recent years, I came to realize that as we are being kept from the profound truth and understanding of just how incredible we are on so many levels, I can no longer stand the lies and manipulation which create an unjust, imbalanced world of conflict. I believe that we are now being presented with a very rare opportunity to evolve beyond this broken paradigm, despite the information being suppressed by society's mainstream authorities and officials. By the end of this ebook you will have a roadmap inspiring you to see the world and yourself with new eyes. You will also have access to some powerful tools which will assist you in realizing and living out your full potential. My hope is that throughout this book, you will feel energized and motivated to commit to your journey of discovering just how incredible you are. I look forward to sharing in this journey with you. Sol Parks, founder of LiveEastChange.com. 2 page. Section 1, A Dying Paradigm and the Ascent of the Sovereign Individual. Freedom means you are unobstructed in living your life as you choose. Anything less is a form of slavery. Wayne Dyer. The Evolutionary Challenge. You are probably reading this book because you felt drawn to experience more of something in your life. More fulfillment, understanding, meaning, purpose. Whatever motivated you to read these words is a result of something so much bigger, of which you will begin to understand as we journey together through this book. There is a transition taking place on our planet right now, and I refer to this phenomenon as the global shift, a time of knowledge and healing which has become a part of our evolutionary challenge. You can't deny that the pressure of our survival is increasing. On a global level we have the increase of international conflicts, natural and man-made disasters, solar storms, economic uncertainty, violence and the depletion of natural resources. We are also witnessing the rise of disease epidemics such as cancer and diabetes, as well as a growing divide between the haves and have-nots in society. As if this wasn't enough for us to contend with, this transition is also being felt on a personal level. Individuals have found they have been facing monumental challenges in their personal lives as they struggle to make sense and cope with upheaval surrounding their personal identity, finances, health, relationships. Key facets that have made up our identity, for decades in some cases, are being called into question, and for many it can be a very unsettling time. I can't tell you how many people I come into contact with who are experiencing significant challenges in one or more of these 4 areas. Through my personal difficulties I discovered I actually had an inner strength I didn't believe was possible. It was this inner resource that allowed me to surmount some of my biggest challenges to date, albeit with the help of some incredible teachers. When I come into contact with people who are experiencing the difficulties associated with our collective evolution, I share with them what I am about to share with you. Challenges are our greatest teachers and represent the opportunity for accelerated learning in life. When you're in the middle of an undesirable situation, it's often difficult to picture a happy conclusion. Often it is not until we have passed through the scorching fires and weathered the harshest of storms, 3 page, that we are able to reflect back on the process with new eyes. Only from an evolved perspective can we recognize the lessons presented within an apparent nightmare. With this clarity comes the recognition that the gift lies the wisdom gained from acknowledging our lessons that come with passing through difficulties. The bigger the challenge, the greater the opportunity presented for self-understanding and transformation. We have to rise to life's lessons and never underestimate our ability to weather the storm and emerge stronger for it. If we're not learning, growing and evolving, then we're dying from the inside out. The wisdom of the ages passed down through ancient scriptures, artifacts and indigenous traditions have indicated that Earth would experience a period of transition at this current time. Humanity would approach a fork in the road which would present the opportunity for our accelerated evolution, and this time has now arrived. Part of this evolutionary challenge is to reclaim the power we lost to the various systems of social control, at the same time to bring to awareness our subconscious programming so that we can attain sovereignty over these hidden parts of our identity. When we make the decision to do this, and it is only a decision, we allow ourselves to expand into a greater sense of self. We become enlightened, powerful and free to consciously choose the ideas and beliefs that direct the patterns of our inner forces. The spell cast on humanity lets ask ourselves a few key questions so we can begin to conceptualize the systems of social control and programming that I'm suggesting. These systems of social control perpetuate and enforce an official reality program upon humanity to the extent that those of us in the West believe we are sovereign beings with individual thoughts and beliefs. In fact, the very opposite is true. You may have a hard time accepting that your thoughts and beliefs aren't strictly your own. I certainly did. I did when I first came to this realization. No one wants the embarrassment of discovering that they are being manipulated in such a way that they maybe aren't as sovereign as they had thought. We like to think of ourselves as being in control and fairly switched on, but for the majority this is sadly not the case. However, with something this important, given the choice between upsetting my ego and living an illusion of freedom, I'd gratefully take a bruised ego any day. Let's explore how this system of control has weaved its spell on the human population. You may think that there is nothing amiss with the ideas and beliefs propagated by official outside authorities who maintain the systems of today's society. Authorities such as governments, medical experts, military experts, economic experts, science experts, religious experts, etc. In fact, the very structure of our daily lives relies on these experts figuring everything out for us and telling us how it is or the right thing to do. Our ability to look after ourselves is continually 4-page undermined by the overall system of control comprised of these various compartmentalized institutions. Through these authorities we have been taught and conditioned not to look at the bigger picture, about what reality really means and the purpose our existence may hold. Heaven forbid the implications of people connecting to a deep sense of purpose in their lives and searching out the meaning behind their existence. It could result in people opening their minds to greater possibilities for themselves and opening their hearts to greater meaning in life. If this were the case, the system of control would collapse like a house of cards. To ensure the system's survival, it teaches us from a young age that such questions as the meaning of life are unimportant or unanswerable. Instead, we are taught to follow the rules as set by the majority and think as our parents had thought and their parents had thought, perpetuating this deeply embedded subconscious programming throughout generations. We have to ask ourselves why such censorship exists. How did this system of control come to define reality for us and urge us to never define reality for ourselves? Who might benefit from teaching generations of people not to question authority or the ideas upheld by authorities? Conformity, the jailer of freedom. If we look at Western society, for example the US, UK or Australia, we are meant to be the greatest examples of free citizenry and enterprise, especially the US. However, according to the official view of things, consensual reality, as perpetuated through mainstream media, politics and our social, business, religious and educational institutions, we are taught that it is acceptable to believe some things as true, others are not, some behaviors as acceptable, others not. We are taught to view our reality and define ourselves in a certain way in order to be acceptable, functional and normal within the imposed and perpetuated social boundaries. We are taught from an early age to conform. We then form a belief system built upon a complex network of our social and cultural ideologies. Our core subconscious belief systems, as dictated by the official view of things, are where all our other beliefs emerge. Because our beliefs operate at a subconscious level, most people aren't consciously aware of their belief system and essentially live their lives on autopilot. What this means is that these subconscious programs direct most people's thoughts, actions and behaviors rather than them consciously choosing to direct them. Sadly, the result is a human population that is largely disempowered, believing they are the victim of external forces beyond their control. Our subconscious programs dictate the workings of our physical, mental and emotional systems, so in turn we become victimized by the power they have over us. Essentially, the human population has become like a herd of sheep, unable to think independently outside the predetermined boundaries and programs of consensual reality. 5-page. For the sake of transparency. Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge that what I have just mentioned and am about to expand on may be uncomfortable to accept. This is perfectly understandable. However, I believe that in order to forever transform the understanding we have of ourselves and bring about the life experiences we truly desire, we need to get right to the root of the issue. I'm not expecting you to blindly accept these conclusions, as that in effect would be selling you another belief system. The purpose behind what I am about to share is to get you to ask some questions you may have never thought to entertain before. An open mind will be required in order for you to get the most value from this ebook. The hope is that the preceding paragraphs will resonate with you at a level beyond the initial surface reaction, that they will spark your curiosity and urge you to do your own research and reach your own conclusions. The journey of self-discovery and mastery becomes so much more rewarding and energizing when you connect the dots for yourself. I have put a link at the end of this section which will kickstart your pursuit of knowledge and inquiry to assist with your self-mastery. Capstone knowledge. As I have observed and reflected on where humanity lost its way, I came to the realization that society and its systems of control rely on hierarchical pyramid structures of knowledge and ignorance in order to operate and function. The concept of this structure is key if we are to begin to understand how and why the system's programs of disempowerment exist. These structures are everywhere throughout society, and no more so than in our main social institutions: government, media, education, military, business, healthcare, food, economy and science. To make this a bit clearer, we'll take a high-level overview of the corporate business structure as an example of this hierarchical pyramid. It makes sense for us to use corporate business as an example of this structure, given capitalism currently dictates the activities of our daily lives. We'll start at the top of the hierarchy, that is the capstone of the pyramid, and work our way down to the foundational level. Board of Directors, CEO, Senior Directors / Presidents, Senior Managers, Managers, Supervisors, Employees. 6-page. The motivations behind any organization's strategic decisions are principally acquiring more profit, leverage to expand, more control, larger market share, and therefore more power, influence over the market. At the top of the hierarchy you have the board of directors, who make up a comparatively tiny number when compared to the entire organization. They make the strategic decisions and have access to privileged market information which they may share with the directors of the company. Together the board and directors determine the best direction for the organization to take. The guys in the boardroom have what I call capstone knowledge. The relatively tiny few at the top of the pyramid structure who have full knowledge and vision of the organization and marketplace, so can therefore determine which direction the organization needs to go in to achieve their goals. After collecting and acquiring market information obtained from the lower levels of the pyramid, the board make informed decisions which will allow for them to increase profits so they can expand and control more of the market. The CEO is then responsible for taking the company towards these goals, and his senior directors do the same within their respective area of responsibility: marketing, risk and compliance, finance, etc. The senior managers within these respective areas then make the necessary changes at the operational level to meet the boardroom agenda. However, as you travel down the organizational hierarchy, each level is privy to less knowledge than the level above. For example, by the time the agenda reaches the functional workforce at the base of the structure, who make up a majority of the organization, they have little, if any, idea of how their individual responsibilities relate to the purpose of the agenda set in the boardroom. Very few think to question the impact of their individual responsibility on the bigger picture, as we have been conditioned not to question authority and those in positions of perceived power. Just to summarize the above, within all hierarchical structures, knowledge is compartmentalized. Those at the top are in full knowledge of what is going on within the organization and its marketplace, whereas those beneath are kept ignorant of the purpose behind the organization's agenda and remain isolated from the areas outside of their responsibility. The percentage of those in full knowledge of what is happening and the direction of the organization, that is the capstone of the pyramid, make up a tiny percentage compared to the vast majority beneath which hold them at the top, that is only a few hold full knowledge of the bigger picture. 7 page. I recognize this is a very simplistic example, but it really doesn't need to be complex unless you want to prevent people from understanding what really matters. After all, they could start asking all sorts of awkward questions, a bit like we are doing now. The example has been applied to a corporate structure but really can be applied to any of society's institutions, organizations and social systems where profit, power and control are a motive. Once we get our heads round it, the principle is actually quite straightforward. However, the implications for our physical, mental, emotional and spiritual well-being are profound. Holographic pyramids, structures of a broken paradigm. The hierarchical structure of knowledge and ignorance permeates all levels of our human experience across individuals, communities, regions, nations, continents, worldwide. In effect, it is holographic. The same structure can be found on all scales throughout society, from the small and groups of people to powerful transnational organizations and institutions. From now on I will refer to these hierarchical structures as holographic pyramids, whereby the very same structure can be found within and across all areas used to maintain order in society. This is how society has been structured throughout history. It's how the masses have always been controlled. Only a select privileged few have full knowledge of the bigger picture, direction and agenda imposed on the majority within a given organization/community/society/nation. This is achieved by withholding knowledge that would allow full understanding at the lower levels of the holographic pyramid. Many would argue that our knowledge as a species has expanded over the centuries, so how are we being kept in ignorance? While our intelligence seems to have evolved in many ways since our predecessors, unfortunately the same can't be said for our wisdom and well-being as a whole. The consensual opinion is that our standard of living has greatly improved over the past century, which gives the illusion that we have evolved. Yes, we have more freedom and privileges than previous generations, but has the quality of our lives improved? Increase of cancer, mental illness, stress, depression, addiction, suicide, apathy, violence, corruption. It's a heavy price to pay for the privilege of being able to consume more material items, which we have been conditioned to believe reflects our personal evolution. What is important to take away from this subsection is that throughout history, there has always been a hierarchy of knowledge and subsequent ignorance in human civilization. The idea of a global pyramid structure of control is difficult to comprehend, as it's been complicated by compartmentalized institutions in society which appear completely independent of one another. They are actually interdependent at the highest levels within the respective institutions. The control system's agenda is to keep humanity distracted, ignorant and placated, so they are happy to continue to serve and operate within the imposed limitations. In the meantime, those with capstone knowledge benefit from the ignorance of the masses in terms of profit, power and control. It is our ignorance that allows for the system to expand and impose itself on increasing areas of our lives through its various institutions. Consider, it would be near enough impossible to get the human population to agree to serving this system if it were transparent and sought our permission for participation. Just imagine it. 8 page. Excuse me sir/madam, we need your help. We have a system in place to withhold life-altering knowledge from the human population, principally for our own self-interests of profit, power and control. In effect, all we need is for you to agree to a form of economic slavery which will allow us to expand our level of control into greater areas of the world and your life. Essentially, you would be contributing to this agenda in the form of taxation and working for organizations that are integral to this system. We expect you to fully immerse yourself in the system as soon as you have finished being programmed to see the world as we want you to, that is when school finishes. You will then be able to buy trinkets and entertain yourself with trivialities from the money you earn, which will make you feel good and give you a sense of accomplishment, importance and social identity. In order to survive in the system, the likelihood is that you will have to get into debt by borrowing money that doesn't exist and never will. Oh, and did we mention that we will have to charge you interest on borrowing this non-existent money? We call it leverage. All we want in exchange for this experienced illusion of freedom is for you to continue serving the system until you're no longer capable of serving it. At this point, depending on how proficiently you have served us, you may get to retire and spend some of your later years having the freedom to live as you wish, albeit still within our imposed limitations. However, we must warn you that this outcome is unlikely, as statistics show that most will spend their retirement in poverty and as many as 80% will leave this world without ever accomplishing their dreams. We'd like to extend a formal invitation to you. What do you say? Are you up for it? Society wouldn't quite exist in the same way, would it? You can't physically control 7 billion people and get them to comply with a system that is not remotely in their interest. The only way this is possible is by subtly controlling their perception of reality and themselves, so they willingly acquiesce with the system of control and its agenda. This is the primary function of our mainstream media, which includes TV, movies, newspapers, magazines, radio, is to feed us a mediated version of reality that suits the system of control. They propagate and circulate mainstream beliefs and perspectives that serve the control system's desire to promote ignorance amongst the population whilst satisfying their insatiable hunger for profit, power and control. It's interesting to note that at the time of writing this, plans are being put into place to regulate and monitor the Internet. The government have openly admitted to the public that they are losing control of the information battle. People in their millions are being drawn to alternative media to find out what's really going on in the world, and this can't be allowed to happen if the people are to be kept asleep and in servitude. So the threat of cyber attacks is being sold to the public in order to justify a reason to monitor and censor information on the web. Fairly soon, web surfing will no longer be a private activity, and sites posing as a threat to the system can be closed down under the new Internet censorship laws that would be signed into place. This would potentially include alternative news sources. 9 page. That are exposing and decompartmentalizing the global system of control and its infringement on human freedom. Time for a reality check. Let's examine this a bit closer to home. We just need to look at our daily newspapers and television broadcasts, or the values of our local business school. Our mainstream program tells us that everywhere we are helpless and victimized by forces beyond our control. That the world is a harsh, cruel place of limited resources for which we must compete, that our bodies are vulnerable and unable to protect themselves against disease, that humanity is chaotic and sinful and human nature cannot be trusted. Through constant repetition we are trained to believe that there is never enough and we must always need more, and that we are never enough. Not pretty enough, smart enough, strong enough, fast enough, powerful enough, wealthy enough or good enough. No wonder society is frustrated. We are taught, just as our parents were, that all that we are is what exists between the top of our heads and our toes. All this time we have been trained to doubt the self, fear the self, punish the self, and to place our trust in the authorities and experts outside of ourselves. A paradox exists in that we are taught to yearn for power yet to question our ability to handle it wisely. Emotion is a power which is inherently ours, so for that reason we are taught to negate, fear, devalue, disown and discredit intuitive perception and knowledge. HMMM. Does it sound like our mainstream institutions are designed to help us to become empowered or free? This programming has led us to the situation where the majority believe that what is on the outside is more important than what is on the inside. We are continually encouraged to distract ourselves with the more important external aspects of reality. Are we encouraged by our mainstream program to look within for answers, to discover our own innate power to create change in our lives, or to spend time exploring the great phenomenon that exists between our ears? The average person is too busy, overburdened or distracted to take time to explore the self. Everything else seems more important. And many are far too intellectually smug to admit the self is a great unknown and too frightened to approach the concept with an open mind. If you reminisce to your school days, you'll recognize that you were trained to accept the perceptions of others as being more valid than your own and to appease at all costs. I am of the belief that our mainstream schools were designed to squelch creativity and personal identity to create good little students who obey their teachers and follow the rules. Then we enter an economic structure that further programs us to obey the authorities, work for others and allow them to benefit in unfair proportions from the investments of our energies and labor. Basically we are taught that in order to survive, we must either please others at all costs, because they hold our power, or fight our way through the system to make it, and forcibly reclaim our power. Sacrifice the self, serve others, work hard, make more, buy more. Compete, push, produce. When it's all spelt out like this, it seems like utter madness, doesn't it? Yet, these are the hidden belief programs we are encouraged to adopt from cradle to grave. We have even been programmed to create disease in the body, and only in recent years have people come out to tell us that we have the power to change the program and make better, healthier ID choices. Big Pharma is on its way to being a trillion-dollar industry, and its profits depend on our sickness and disease. Why has no one within the 10-page mainstream taught us that thoughts are the foundation of our physical, mental and emotional well-being, and that ultimately they create our reality? This is of huge importance to our expression of freedom, and it's an empowering concept which we'll delve into in the next section. The hope of a better world. In relation to what our mainstream consensual reality teaches us, we have to remind ourselves of why it is important for us to become self-determined if we are to break free from this disempowering program. The hope of a better world for us, our children and future generations depends on it. Ask yourself, do we learn from childhood that we are incredible beings, here to manifest self-sovereignty? Are we taught that we are meant to be powerful, fulfilled and free? Does our training prepare us to work cooperatively in co-creation with others, or does it teach us to separate from others and compete for limited rewards? Do the ideas of those around us teach us that the world is a safe and joyful place, or do they suggest that the world is cold and dangerous? Are we trained to reach out to our fellow humans in trust, or to be suspicious, protect ourselves and retreat in fear? Are we taught to love ourselves, our bodies and others, or to judge and condemn? Are we taught the ways of loving, cooperative, co-creative brotherhood in mainstream thought? I think you'll agree the answer is a categorical no. The absence of these qualities is based on fear and scarcity, the polar opposites of love and abundance, two qualities every single person in this world responds to positively on some level. We have been living in an age of fear and darkness because of a lack of knowledge, and yet you can sense a collective yearning for this to change. It's far from natural to live a life where disease, disharmony, corruption, violence and injustice are the norm. There has been an explosive growth in alternative media and researchers who have dedicated their lives to exposing the knowledge kept from us who have experienced great success in the past few years. This is an extremely positive indication that the wisdom of the ancients is indeed playing out. We are at the early stages of a global shift that is picking up pace as the months go by. Collectively we are starting to seek a deeper understanding of who we are and the world we live in. The system of control can only function on a foundation of ignorance and fear, and its days are numbered. The old paradigm is dying despite its increased efforts to retain their control. Ignorance will give way to knowledge, darkness will give way to light, and humanity will awaken from its hypnosis, break free from its shackles and remember who it is. To understand why this is almost a 11-page. Certainty requires a basic understanding of the principles of energy, which we will explore in the next section. At the beginning of this section we identified that part of our evolutionary challenge is to reclaim the power we lost to the system of control and bring into our awareness our subconscious programming and attain sovereignty over these hidden parts of our identity. When we make the decision to do this, and it is only a decision, we expand into a greater sense of self. We become enlightened, powerful and free to consciously choose the ideas and beliefs that direct the patterns of our inner forces. We are each responsible for our personal evolution, and with this commitment humanity can heal itself and bring about a world in which human potential is nurtured rather than having its possibilities limited. We have a common set of ideas that encourage brotherhood and harmony rather than separation, segregation and power struggles. We are encouraged to love and honor ourselves and others. We are taught respect for all life. We are the change the world needs. Up until this point you may have been imagining who is going to be responsible for changing the program of the old paradigm: governments, religions, the doctors and scientists, the bureaucracies. These are the very organizations and institutions that stand to benefit the most from the current consensual program of beliefs. When people can lead themselves, they do not need leaders. When people can heal themselves, they do not need healers. When people realize that God/our Creator/universe/source of universal intelligence/spirit exists within us and that we exist within that force, they will not need others to save them. A global transition and awakening is taking place, presenting us with the opportunity to discover, comprehend, change and heal the base belief program within ourselves. This is the responsibility of each individual whose life is immersed within and controlled by that program. Each person's successful liberation from the base program makes it easier for the next person to succeed, and together we can create the change we want to see in the world. If at this stage you're not sure if your contribution can make that much of a difference, it can. Through a phenomenon known as the 100th monkey syndrome. 100th monkey syndrome. How change happens. Below excerpt taken from www.ichange.biz. The Japanese monkey, Macaca fuscata, had been observed in the wild for a period of over 30 years. In 1952, on the island of Koshima, scientists were providing monkeys with sweet potatoes dropped in the sand. The monkey liked the taste of the raw sweet potatoes, but they found the dirt unpleasant. An 18-month-old female named Emo found she could solve the problem by washing the potatoes in a nearby stream. She taught this trick to her mother. Her playmates also learned. 12-page. This new way, and they taught their mothers too. This cultural innovation was gradually picked up by various monkeys before the eyes of the scientists. Between 1952 and 1958 all the young monkeys learned to wash the sandy sweet potatoes to make them more palatable. Only the adults who imitated their children learned this social improvement. Other adults kept eating the dirty sweet potatoes. Then something startling took place. In the autumn of 1958, a certain number of Koshima monkeys were washing sweet potatoes. The exact number is not known. Let us suppose that when the sun rose one morning there were 99 monkeys on Koshima Island who had learned to wash their sweet potatoes. Let's further suppose that later that morning, the 100th monkey learned to wash potatoes. Then it happened. By that evening almost everyone in the tribe was washing sweet potatoes before eating them. The added energy of this 100th monkey somehow created an ideological breakthrough. But notice, a most surprising thing observed by these scientists was that the habit of washing sweet potatoes then jumped over the sea. Colonies of monkeys on other islands and the mainland troop of monkeys at Takasakama began washing their sweet potatoes. Thus, when a certain critical number achieves an awareness, this new awareness may be communicated from mind to mind. As we continue to journey through this book, you'll find out how we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves and how you can use this awareness to break free from the disempowering program we've been subjected to and go on to fulfill your potential by living as the incredible you. Kickstart your research and inquiry here. 13 page. Section 2. Evolving beyond the limitations of our five-sense reality. There is an orderliness in the universe. There is an unalterable law governing everything and every being that exists or lives. It is no blind law, for no blind law can govern the conduct of living beings. Mahatma Gandhi. As mentioned in the previous section, we have in effect been conditioned to accept that our five-sense reality is the only reality that exists. All there is to our individual existence is what exists between the top of our heads and the tips of our toes. It suggests that we are individual machines made up of physical parts existing within a big clockwork machine that we know as the universe. According to the five-sense belief system, we have been conditioned to believe that if we can touch it, smell it, see it, taste it, hear it and feel it, then it exists and is real. Any other subtle perception that we may experience, for example intuition and an unexplainable feeling of knowing, those times that urge you to act against normal logic and reasoning because the feelings are too intense to ignore, is cast off as a coincidence, imagination, or if it defies the laws of mainstream physics, a miracle. Considering that a majority of our lives are dictated by unseen phenomena, emotions, intuitions and feelings, surely this is evidence enough to suggest there is more to our human experience than what we perceive through our five senses? When we can become open to the fact consensual reality is limiting our potential to access a far more expansive version of reality, a whole new world opens before us. One where anything we desire enters into the realm of possibility. This is what we will now explore in the next leg of our journey into discovering the incredible you. How did science come to dominate the boundaries of what we accept to be true? Let's start by hopping in a time machine and going back a few centuries to see how we've got to where we are. For centuries science has been consumed with searching out the magic formula that controls life. In the 16th century, scientist and mathematician Isaac Newton saw the universe as a great big machine of physical parts which were predictable and mechanistic by nature. He believed you could understand the universe by measuring the physical properties alone. This was the foundation for our current understanding of our world, materialism, which says that physical reality is the only fundamental reality. As we've established, the scientific technology did not exist back then to measure and understand the invisible information and energy fields we are aware of today. Physics has come to be the parent science which leads the way for all other sciences. Therefore, as the universe was seen as a physical machine made up of physical parts, the rest of the sciences would follow suit and focus and study its purely physical properties. If we lived in a purely physical universe, then it makes sense to look to the physical things within us in order to understand what controls our human lives. What controls us and makes us the way we are. 14 page. Science continued to evolve, and in 1859 Charles Darwin wrote The Origins of Species, where he said that a person's traits were passed down from their parents. He believed something physical was passed down from parents to their child in the form of hereditary traits which controlled the characteristics of that child's life. From this belief, science set about on a mission to find out what controls our strengths, intellectual, artistic and physical abilities, and what determines our weaknesses such as disease, addictions and challenging mental health. 100 years on from Darwin in 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick hypothesized that the DNA molecule in each of our 50 to 100 trillion cells, containing our genes, was the governing mechanism that controlled the potential of our lives. From this hypothesis the central dogma of biology was born. It was said our genes control our lives. If you got a fat gene, happy gene, success gene, depressed gene, alcoholic gene, etc., then that is what you would become. Basically our strengths, weaknesses, abilities and potential were all believed to be pre-programmed by our genes. Great if you got a good set, pretty miserable if you got a bad set. This became known as genetic determinism, but the problem lies in that this was never a scientific fact. It was a hypothesis that then became an unquestioned belief, like so many areas of our consensual reality. Why? Again it comes down to the disempowering agenda of the control system we explored in the previous section. To believe that we are pre-programmed, fixed, physical machines and that we were born that way is one of the most disempowering beliefs that exist. It often leads to a subconscious victim mentality, with no understanding that we are in charge of our destiny and have huge potential to change. It also leaves no room for the power of the mind, which we'll be looking at shortly. Fortunately, the current understanding at the leading edge of science shows us a completely different picture of how life works. They have found that our beliefs, attitudes and overall mindset to life are the all-governing factors in what happens in our body and inevitably our life. Reductionist, deterministic science is beginning to lose steam. Hooray! Our genes have very little, if anything, to do with our traits, personality, characteristics, abilities and potential. In the nature versus nurture debate, nurture is king. It is our early programming and the way we update and program our minds which determine the quality and success of our lives. Genes may directly determine simple physical characteristics such as hair or eye color, but they do not determine our psychologies. Dr. Andrew Weil, professor and pioneer for complementary medicine, studied nearly 1,000 adults for a period of 9 years and found that people with high levels of optimism had a 23% lower risk of death from heart-related disease and a 55% lower risk of death from other causes when compared to their pessimistic peers. This is a staggering insight, as their physiology was not slavishly following the dictates of their genes, instead it was deeply influenced by their state of mind and personality traits. The bottom line is that our destiny does not lie in our genes but rather in our beliefs, and this is incredibly powerful in terms of expressing our full potential in the world. Beyond mainstream science has become rather dogmatic in its influence over society and cultures. It has become the institution responsible for establishing the boundaries of what it is okay to accept as reality and what it is not. In the early 19th century, John Dalton discovered the world's smallest particle, the atom. For a long time consensual belief was that it was indeed the smallest particle that existed. In hindsight, it was all we were capable of measuring at the time. Towards the end of the 19th century and 15th beginning of the 20th, science discovered that the atom wasn't in fact the smallest particle, it was actually made up of smaller particles, still electrons, protons and neutrons. Around this time physics continued to evolve into the realms of quantum physics, yet this field of science has received very little, if any, mainstream recognition over the years in comparison to conventional particle physics. Quantum physics has found and continues to prove that the atom is not as solid as particle physics would have us believe. In fact, an atom is 99.9999% empty space. Just so you can begin to conceptualize the scale of this finding, take the nucleus of an atom and blow it up to the size of a pea. Now place that pea in the center of a football/soccer stadium. That's pretty much the scale of empty space we're looking at. However, at this subatomic level, the empty space was actually found to comprise of waves of energy which have no solidity at all. I'm no physicist. But what quantum physics shows us, is that what we perceive is solid is in effect just an illusion, as 99.9999% of it is comprised of subtle energy waveforms carrying information. That's right. Essentially everything can be reduced down to energy, including you. Because everything in the universe is entangled through this subatomic waveform, everything is interdependent, and therefore at a fundamental level everything influences everything else. This quantum physics concept of interconnectedness bears huge relevance in terms of our ability to interact with this universal field of energy, which from now on I will refer to as the unified field. It brings about the potential to overcome the limitations and challenges of an apparently solid, immutable world by manipulating the unified field in order to materialize from it. For us to reach this level requires a deeper understanding of who we are and how we can use this knowledge to break away from the limitations of conventional beliefs. Philosophers, sages and spiritual traditions have long indicated the importance of connecting to this expanded reality if we are to realize our full potential and achieve tranquility within and without. This unified field consists of waveforms of energetic information, so in this respect it can be said to have a certain unseen intelligence which connects everything that exists within it. It has been given many names over the course of history: God, Spirit, Consciousness, the Matrix, the Universe, the Tao, Life Force Energy, Prana, Chi, Source Energy, and I'm sure many more. Evidence of a vastly expanded perception of reality. Over the decades there has been a vast quantity of scientific evidence to support the theory of quantum mechanics. However, the scientific establishment refuses to take it seriously. It fails to receive funding or attention, as quite simply it doesn't fit with the control system's agenda for maintaining an ignorant population. Yet experimental studies into quantum physics continue to shatter the conventional theories of particle physics. One of the most persuasive experiments in this field has actually shown that the subtle connection between two people through the unified field can actually be measured physically. Two people are put in separate rooms and shielded from any electromagnetic energy, are soundproofed and isolated from any kind of known force, field or signal. Both are linked up to brain 16-page monitoring equipment in such a way as they can both be monitored individually. A light is randomly flashed in one of the subject's eyes which causes effects in their brain activity. The equipment measures the expected changes in the visual area of his brain as well as other related areas. Nothing out of the ordinary here. The extraordinary thing is that the equipment measuring the other person isolated in a separate room picks up exactly the same brain stimulation at the same time, even though no light is flashing in her eye. Somehow what happens to one of the pair affects the physical system of the other, even though they are far apart in separate rooms and both are shielded against signal penetration. Dr. Dean Radin is a senior scientist at the Institute of Antic Sciences. He conducts some of the most vigorous studies exploring what is commonly referred to as the paranormal, especially as it relates to the entanglement between human beings. He is incredibly passionate and vocal about what these experiments tell us, that we are entangled beings and what happens to one of us influences others, even if we are not consciously aware of the influence. He is also vocal about how the scientific establishment refuses to take these studies seriously, despite meeting the gold standard in terms of experimental methodology. He, like many others in his field, believe that this should be the biggest news of the day, as it totally changes how we think of ourselves and our place in the world. At this stage you and I both know why this information is being suppressed in the mainstream. With his characteristic humor, Dr. Radin says, "This discovery is so shocking that it is virtually guaranteed no one would hear about it, despite it being published in a medical journal. This is worse than missing a story about aliens landing in the White House lawn. It's more like spotting an alien shopping in the frozen food section of the local grocery store and no one caring." Entangled Minds, Dean Radin, 2006. I'd like to pick up on Dr. Radin's sentiments when he said this information totally changes how we think of ourselves and our place in the world. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it completely changes everything and has the potential for the human population to experience freedom, peace, happiness and prosperity on a whole new level. Taking responsibility. It's time to empower ourselves. The majority of people believe that they have little control over external influences in their lives. This is not entirely their fault, as we have been brought up to believe this is the case. So the consensual program leads us to believe we either have to give our power away to an outside authority or fight for it in order to forcibly reclaim it. I hope at this point in our journey that you are beginning to entertain the idea that there is another way. However, in order for us to be able to create a life by design as opposed to settle for the one prescribed by the control system, we've got to take 100% responsibility over 4 key areas of ourself in the following order. Our beliefs, do they empower us or limit us? Our feelings, do they feel good or bad? Our thoughts, do they inspire us or do they prevent us from taking action? Our actions, are they in alignment with the above? The reason being is that, what we believe either limits or expands our perception of ourselves and the world, which in turn influences what we believe we are capable of being/achieving. What we believe about ourselves or a situation determines how we feel about it. 17 page. How we feel determines what we think about ourselves or situation. Our thoughts then dictate our behaviors and actions. Our behaviors and actions produce an outcome which is either desirable or undesirable based on all of the above. We are continually creating whether we realize it or not. We are continually interacting with the unified field of energy whether we realize it or not. The unified field responds to us in accordance with certain natural laws like the law of cause and effect. This law states that every thought, intent and action generates a force of energy that returns to us in like kind. Whatever you put out into the unified field will return to you. Positive thoughts, intents and actions will return people, circumstances and events that match the energy that you radiate out into the unified field. We've been under the influence of this law since birth, although we are never made aware of this despite it being 100% responsible for everything we have experienced in life to date. It may be a tough pill to swallow for some, as it means taking 100% responsibility for everything that has happened in our lives, the good, bad and indifferent. At this point you may be thinking of all the negative things that have happened to you in life and be thinking, well, I didn't want that. I wouldn't have created that. Let's take the example of someone crashing into your brand new car. Well, I didn't have the intent for that guy to crash into my brand new car. He was on his phone, not looking when he turned out of the road, and as a result drove his car straight into mine. To understand the law of cause and effect, we have to understand the principles of energy. You may not have been thinking about someone running into your brand new car, but when it happened, how did you feel? Frustrated, angry, annoyed? Now think back to the past few weeks. The likelihood is that you had received some news or had an experience which made you feel frustrated, angry or annoyed. So this was the energetic information you had been vibrating at and sending out into the unified field with a particular degree of intensity. The law of cause and effect delivers 100% of the time without fail. In this example, it delivered a car accident which matched the intensity of the underlying feelings of frustration, anger and annoyance you had been unconsciously projecting in the previous days/weeks/months. Because we are all entangled at our most fundamental level, you and the guy that crashed into your car were a vibrational match for one another. The accident would have corresponded to his energetic resonance. It could have been a negative experience for him, in which case he was also unconsciously 18 page. Sending out energetic vibes of frustration. On the other hand, it could have been positive. He could have wanted a new car, and with the insurance payout he can now put down a deposit on a new car. The unified field is always seeking energetic balance and delivers only according to what is projected into it with absolutely no bias. Because of the law of cause and effect, you often hear people exclaim, "Why do bad things always happen to me?" Well, They expect them to happen and send out energetic information accordingly, so the law of cause and effect responds and delivers. Why does that guy have life so easy? He's so lucky. He's not lucky. He radiates positive energy into the unified field, which responds by bringing positive situations and opportunities to him. There is no such thing as luck, which suggests that our lives are a lottery and implies we have no control over its direction. There is only conscious or unconscious creation. We are constantly creating every waking second of our lives, and when we become aware of this, it allows us to take back control of our lives. The illusion of perceived limitations that govern the material world, such as the economy, a lack of resource, academic grades, geographical boundaries, or that you don't appear qualified enough, are just that, illusions. Everything in our physical world is entangled at its deepest level. The unified field continually seeks balance, so will deliver according to what you send out 100% of the time, irrespective of what would commonly be perceived as an obstacle. I'll share a personal example with you. I used to work in the finance department of an international insurance company, looking after the credit control for their corporate clients. I'd been with them for 2.5 years and was starting to get itchy feet. Towards the end of 2009, I wanted a new job. I loved the idea of doing something more aligned with my interests. At this time I was really getting into my pursuit for truth and studying the nature of reality, control system, etc. But I knew I was unlikely to find a job which would involve such areas. Instead, I started exploring jobs where I could potentially remain in the corporate world yet be involved with the personal development of myself and others. I also wanted to be able to conduct some form of research relating to my areas of interest and have the opportunity for international travel. I didn't want much, did I? So I started applying for jobs and attending interviews. Prior to 2009, I seemed to have the interview mojo. Frequently I had the luxury of choosing between 2 to 3 job offers. Due to the downturn in the global economy, I guessed my mojo had run its course. I attended 5 interviews and not 1 job offer, but I didn't stress, I just had a feeling something would come up. One week in November 2009, I was introduced to the concept of starting a home business by one of my previous bosses and 2 other people. Had they been isolated introductions, I probably wouldn't have taken any notice. But the concept intrigued me, and I found it strange that 3 completely unrelated people had introduced the same concept to me within the space of a week. So I spent a few months researching online what was involved and ended up responding to an ad which jumped out at me. At that point in time, everything changed and things started to move swiftly in my life. I started my business, left my corporate job, through synchronicity found a part-time job. I got my mojo back for that one, that allowed me to work on my business. A few weeks after starting my business, I found out the company was affiliated with some of the truth activists I had been learning from for the past couple of years. I have since met and spoken with them at our international conferences, yet I had no idea when I initially responded to that ad. I'm also involved with the personal development of myself and others, as well as continually researching ways to empower those I serve through my business and personal projects. I love it. I thought the only way of earn a stable living within the system was to become a corporate wage slave. Turns out this was another program belonging to the system of control. I'm so fortunate to currently be doing what I truly want to do, even though the possibility was way off my radar. 19 page. When I was feeling like it was time for a change back in 2009. If your thoughts, intentions and actions are aligned and you make it a priority to feel as good as you can, the unified field will respond in accordance to make the seemingly impossible possible. It happens frequently these days, and without a shadow of a doubt confirms that this world is nothing like we are told it is, and it is actually a pretty magical place to be once you start to evolve beyond the mainstream programming. Human transmitters and receivers' thoughts do create things. This is not a new concept and has been the foundation for a majority of the self-help materials available today. But, and this is a big but, Thoughts only create things to the extent that we engage in the process with our feelings. I'd really like to break this one down as it's of great significance to leading a life by personal design. Every thought has an energetic vibration of a certain frequency, and this frequency is what we project out into the unified field. Essentially all the time we are thinking, consciously or unconsciously, we are creating. The more intensity there is behind our thoughts, the faster they materialize. So the more we think about something and the more emotion behind that thought, the stronger the transmission we send out, therefore the faster the return through the law of cause and effect. So for most people they are creating unconsciously because there is little, if any, control over the thoughts that come into their mind. A lot of time is spent worrying about future possibilities, beating themselves up over the past, or feeling trapped and frustrated in their present situation. In effect, they don't control their thoughts control them. Often, frustration and desperation cause people to want to bring about change in their lives, and these feelings motivate their actions, which often result in disproportionately small results. The reason being is that how they feel, fear of failure, doubt, frustration, skepticism, desperation, is often contradictory to the positive feelings associated with their desired outcome. Although thoughts are projected out into the unified field, whether they manifest into a physical experience is largely influenced by the energy a person radiates, which is determined by their predominant thoughts and feelings. Let's look at an example. When we want something, we tend to become fixed upon how we're going to get it. All of our thoughts and energies become consumed with how, and this is where we get frustrated because we see no logical way to move forward. Based on what we perceive around us through our five senses, what we want seems impossible. Think of me wanting a job within the system that exposed and helped break down the system. However, the object or outcome you desire isn't actually what you want. Seriously? You want to experience the feelings associated with your desire, which could be the physical relief of improved health, the security of more money, the comfort of a bigger home, the intimacy of a new relationship, etc. Going back to my example, I wanted to connect to a sense of purpose, the passion of serving others through my interests, the freedom of international travel and greater financial security. At the time, the 20-page economy had taken a nosedive, the job market was tough, I didn't have the qualifications necessary to get a significant pay rise, and my perfect job didn't exist in the corporate world. But I still remained optimistic that something would come up, and it did. Becoming an entrepreneur was not even on my radar at the time, but the solution was so much better than what I had originally conceived of. All manner of things started to shift and come onto my radar, allowing me to ease out of the corporate world and into life as an entrepreneur. When our intentions are strong and we feel good, the unified field responds in ways beyond our imagination and actually delivers a solution that goes over and above the expectations of our original desire. We activate the law of cause and effect through our desires, but negate the activation through our feelings of anxiety, doubt, skepticism and fear, which tend to come about when we focus on how the desire will manifest. This is why people perceive success as a type of lottery, dependent on circumstances external to them, and struggle to accomplish the success they really desire. They get caught up in the how, and the resulting anxiety, doubt, skepticism, fear and desperation is an energetic mismatch for what they actually desire, that is the positive feelings associated with attaining the object outcome. The number one cause of failure is because we have allowed fear to become the driver of our actions rather than inspiration. When our feelings are in alignment with our desired outcome, we consciously create in harmony with the unified field. It responds to the energy we radiate out through our thoughts and feelings in order to achieve balance. When our feelings are in alignment with our desired outcome, the how doesn't matter, as the unified field connects everything within our world and beyond. It will move mountains on our behalf to match the energy we send out through our thoughts and feelings. Note, the outcome never happens how we expect it to happen. The solution tends to exceed what we actually desire and is often way off our radar at the beginning. For this reason, being flexible and receptive are key qualities to develop. When our feelings are in alignment with our desired outcome, there is no need to struggle and try to make things happen. Instead, you will feel inspired to take action towards the fulfillment of your desire. This action will feel right and you will find it enjoyable, as you will be moving in sync with the unified field's response. For your loftiest goals to become a material reality, you have to feel as good as you can, as close a match to the feelings you will experience when your desire manifests. If you can't bring yourself to feel this good without doubt, skepticism, etc., my advice would be to feel as good as you can and keep feeling better. Sometimes even this can be difficult, in which case your level of belief is the problem, and we will look at how to address this in the next section. 21 page. I think at this point, it's worth reminding ourselves of the 4 areas which affect our ability to take full control over our destinies. Our beliefs, do they empower us or limit us? Our feelings, do they feel good or bad? Our thoughts, do they inspire us or do they paralyze us from taking action? Our actions, are they in alignment with the above? Again, the reason being is that what we believe either limits or expands our perception of ourselves and the world, which in turn influences what we believe we are capable of. What we believe about ourselves or a situation determines how we feel about something. How we feel determines what we think about that something. Our thoughts then dictate our behaviors and actions. Our behaviors and actions determine the outcome, which is either desirable or undesirable based on all of the above. We each have a unique energy field which contains energetic information made up of our predominant thoughts and feelings about ourselves and the world around us, as we're about to see. Our energy field is what the unified field predominantly responds to and engages with. The living matrix. We've begun to touch on the idea that there is much more to our existence than simply existing as a mechanistic, biological machine composed of physical parts. We're now going to take a look at the magnificent phenomenon that is our human body and energy field. We'll look at the body's 2 communication systems and how they interact with the unified field which makes up the physical world as we know it. Like all living organisms, our bodies produce their own energy fields which radiate a unique vibration based on what we think and how we feel. These vibes are what you pick up on when you meet someone for the first time, and before exchanging words or physical contact you get a feeling about them. You either register a good vibe, strange vibe, bad vibe or no vibe. This is you reading and interpreting their energy field and subconsciously drawing a comparison to your own vibration. The more alike the vibrations are, the greater the resonance, and therefore we interpret this resonance as a positive feeling. This also works in reverse with contrasting vibrations. Our energy field continually communicates with our environment and returns subtle information we decode into an experience. In addition to this external communication system, our body also has 2 internal communication systems, a chemical signaling system, the nervous system, an electromagnetic information signaling system, the living matrix. It is the second system which is the predominant vehicle for programming and deprogramming the subconscious mind, as well as integrating new and more empowering belief systems. Our perceptions of the world around us come from the input of our 5 physical senses, which send signals to the brain. Our brain then releases a torrent of chemicals, enzymes and hormones around the body through the automatic 22 page nervous system. This allows for our nervous system to perform various functions, maintain balance and keep the body safe. Once our nervous system has responded to the 5-sense stimulus, the body then radiates the resulting energy of emotions, energy in motion, in a 360-degree field outside of your body and into the environment through your heart center in the form of a torus. Our energy field is made up of electromagnetic energy which affects every cell in the body and is integral to the structure of all material systems, as it makes up 99.9999% of physical forms we can perceive. From now on I will refer to the human electromagnetic system as the living matrix, a term coined by biophysicist Dr. James Osman. The fundamental difference between this system and the nervous system is that the living matrix transmits information around the body in the form of energy as opposed to chemicals. The nervous system is a bit like dial-up internet, and the living matrix is more like fiber optic broadband, which sends vastly higher quantities of information across a more complex communication network at greater speeds. Both systems activate the body's cells to perform their function. However, while the chemical messengers travel around a centimeter a second, the information signals of the living matrix would have made it 3/4 of the way to the moon in the same time. The energy system. For more than 5,000 years, Eastern medical systems have recognized the reality that the human body uses energy fields to function. This is a concept that really resonates with me. In 2006, which marked the start of my journey of self-discovery, I had the great privilege to spend a couple of months in Malaysia, where my relatives from my mother's side live. I stayed with my uncle, Wong Chi Choi, who was a high priest of Taoism. I spent a majority of my time whilst I was there staying at his temple, which I guess you could say was my first introduction to the world of energy, healing and the human psychology. From my uncle I learned the power of the living matrix and the healing properties of nature from the plants he collected from the jungle, which allowed him to facilitate miraculous healing on his patients. To my great sadness, which was shared by many others, he passed away on 6th of March 2009. In the short time I spent with him, I revisited his temple for a second time in 2008. I didn't fully recognize how he was to forever change my perception of reality and what it means to be a human being. Without doubt, he was the most gifted, mysterious, loving and wisest souls I have had the privilege of connecting with. Through his immense knowledge and incredibly rare understanding of the human experience, he was able to assist over 40,000 people overcome their disease and suffering. In some cases he literally saved their lives through his use of mystical energy work and intuitive herbal concoctions from the jungle. For me, the most beautiful part of his work was he did it all for free. Because of the profound impact he had on the lives of those he helped, he attracted hundreds of people who 23-page supported his work through donations and contributions, some of whom were influential politicians and businessmen in Malaysia. During my time there I had the great fortune of meeting people from all walks of life whom my uncle had healed of cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's disease, addictions, mental illness and even infertility. To describe my experience as life-changing seems such an understatement. Not all of my understanding of the human energy system came from my uncle. I like to read widely around the subject as it is a passion of mine. A couple of years ago I was initiated into shamanism, and since then I have continued to work on my own energy body with the help of a mentor. It's been a fascinating journey of self-discovery and brought about a desire to understand the human experience at a much deeper level. You're probably aware that the most well-formulated theory of the living matrix is the Chinese meridian system, which is a network for carrying electromagnetic, life force, energy around the body. It is a complex network of energy channels which circulate the body and regulate the flow of energy throughout it. Any blockage to the flow of this vital energy is what results in discomfort and disease in the body. While this understanding has been around for over 5,000 years in Eastern traditions, the West only caught up back in 1995 when they officially acknowledged the existence of energy channels in the body where the Chinese plotted them all those years ago. In 1995, Dr. Pierre de Verngeuil and his team injected a non-toxic radioactive tracer dye into the legs of his volunteers at the commonly used acupuncture points of the meridian system. Using gamma camera imaging to trace the flow of the dye, he found that the dye traveled specifically along the clearly defined meridian network that the Chinese have been using for thousands of years. When they injected the dye randomly in the body, not at an acupuncture point, the dye didn't move along any specific pathway. In fact, many studies have shown that the meridian pathways are low-resistance pathways for the flow of electricity. Other studies have shown without doubt that activating particular acupuncture points correlates to specific effects in precise areas of the brain. This concept is huge, and in the next section of this book we'll look at exactly how you can use it in your process of transformation and personal evolution. Our energy vortices. You may or may not have come across the Eastern mystical concept of chakras, which is a Sanskrit word and translates to wheels of light. They essentially determine the health of our energy field, which translates to our personal vibration. As you can see on the left, we have 7 main chakras within the body. They are like vortices which pull in energy from the unified field. Energy is pulled in and metabolized through each chakra and sent to the parts of the body located in the major nerve plexus area closest to each one. Each chakra is 24-page. Associated with certain characteristic according to whether it is balanced, enlarged, pulling in too much energy, or contracted, pulling in too little energy. Characteristics of each chakra can be found in the Section 2 appendix at the back of this e-book. Our ability to draw in balanced amounts of energetic information from the unified field around us plays a significant part in determining how we feel, which determines our ability to create forward movement in our lives. Feelings are powerful. They can inspire us into action or paralyze us. They are also a powerful feedback mechanism, and if used consciously can aid in making decisions that will lead to the accomplishment of our innermost desires throughout life. Master yourself on a whole new level. A lot of personal development material stresses the importance of positive thinking, and to a certain degree this is true. Positive thinking is a worthwhile goal and makes life a lot more enjoyable. If you've tried to adopt positive thinking by simply trying to change the way you think, you've probably found it difficult to maintain change, especially when you encounter personal challenges. As we're aware, thoughts do create things, and positive thoughts create positive things. However, if we want to change our thinking long-term and lead successful, fulfilled and passionate lives according to our individual desires, then we need to go deeper than our surface-level thoughts. We have to deprogram our subconscious belief systems, which in turn will affect how we feel about ourselves and ultimately the way we think. So in the next sections of this e-book, we're going to explore practical ways of deprogramming ourselves by updating our beliefs so that we can master ourselves and our realities on a whole new level. By the end of the following sections, you will have 2 powerful tools to support you on the way to fulfilling your highest potential and realizing the incredible you. 25-page. Section 3. Masters of our reality. He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. Lao Tzu. A quick recap. So far in the journey towards discovering the incredible you, we have explored the system of control which has been designed in such a way as to create a population that conforms to a self-limiting consensual reality, in order that the system survives. We have also broken out of the consensual programming to look at a far more expansive reality as discovered by leading-edge science. It is a version of reality that is far more empowering and has profound implications for our ability to lead an incredible life as dictated by our deepest desires. The world and its human population have reached a point of transition, an evolutionary challenge at both the personal and ultimately collective level. I refer to this point of transition as the global shift, a phenomenon which is providing the opportunity, for those who dare, to discover their full potential and dream a new world into being. We already have an understanding that at our most fundamental level we are entangled and connected to one another and the world at large through a universal field of energetic information, the unified field. Any change that occurs throughout the physical world and even cosmos, affects us at some level as individual beings. If you are curious to know why the world is currently undergoing a period of transition and why at some level you are being affected, I have included details in the appendix under the global shift. We are aware that both our collective and personal evolutionary challenge is dependent on our ability to reclaim the power we lost to the various systems of social control, At the same time to bring to awareness our subconscious programming so that we can reclaim and attain sovereignty over these hidden parts of our identity. To summarize, we are being presented with the challenge to break free from perceived limitations so that we can master ourselves on a more expansive level. It is allowing us to realize that we are not victims of external events beyond our control but instead powerful creators of our reality. The system of control continues to do everything in its power to prevent the human population from awakening to this realization. Their arrogance leads them to believe they can contend with the evolutionary forces of the universe by manipulating our perception of reality so that we remain ignorant of who we are and therefore submit to fear and servitude. The days of this paradigm built on fear, control and manufactured ignorance are numbered. We forget that we are a part of nature in this increasingly technological world. Yet if we look back over history, time and again it has shown us that it is not the strongest or necessarily most intelligent species that survives, rather it is the species most responsive to change. So there is no logic for us to cling to a dying paradigm when we are being presented with the opportunity to change, adapt and evolve. Are you ready for change? To change and evolve we have to want to change and evolve. We then have to find effective ways to change our beliefs because as we have discussed it is our beliefs that either limit or expand our ability to fully realize our potential. Our beliefs exist in our subconscious and so in order to change our beliefs we have to take steps to align our conscious and subconscious selves. Typically, developmental theories divide human consciousness into 4 levels. An example of this can be seen in Bill Tibet's model for the development of human consciousness which can be seen below. Each of the 4 stages has its own 26-page fundamental belief structure that guides the people within that level in terms of how they feel, think and act. Generally a person who has reached the later stages of development can understand the earlier worldviews, because they would have evolved beyond the earlier stages. On the other hand, the person at the earlier stages of development will have difficulty in understanding the later stages for which they have no frame of reference. We can see from the table that approximately 80% of people in modern society function at the conventional levels and only 10%-20% demonstrate post-conventional worldviews. However, the numbers of people are growing as a result of the global shift. At this time, very few people have reached the transpersonal stage of consciousness. As you're still with me at this stage of our journey, I will assume that you are in a position where you are ready to create change in your life so you can break free from consensual programming and begin to express your full potential in the world. So we are now going to explore how we can master ourselves in the 4 areas that determine our physical experience, our beliefs, feelings, thoughts and actions. The power of belief definition. Our beliefs are a collection of thoughts that determine our perceptions of the world and how we interact with it. They dictate the choices we make, the relationships we have, the creations we manifest, the behaviors and actions we demonstrate. Ultimately our beliefs determine the quality of life we experience. We are aware that our beliefs are stored in our subconscious mind and that throughout our lives we are subject to a systemic form of programming that on the whole is very disempowering. The world shows itself to us according to what we consciously and subconsciously believe. Our beliefs have many biases which can easily distort reality. Expectation is a big one, what we assume as a certainty, but also, as social psychologist Robert Cialdini showed, we tend to believe what is told to us by those we respect and trust as figures of authority, such as those in key positions within our social structures or any expert within their field. We take their word at face value and rarely do people check or research the facts given to them. Dr. Andrew Newberg of the University of Pennsylvania identified 27 ways in which reality is distorted to fit our biases. I have included 5 of the key ones below for contemplation. 27-page. 1. Perceptual bias. We automatically assumes that our perceptions and beliefs reflect objective truths about ourselves and the world. There is no such thing as an objective observer. Question: do you sometimes automatically assume that what you see is the only truth? 2. Uncertainty bias: we don't like uncertainty and ambiguity, we prefer to believe or disbelieve, rather than remain uncertain. Being comfortable with uncertainty is essential if we want to create change in our lives. Questions: do you sometimes prefer not to be uncertain? How do you try to manage your uncertainty? 3. Bandwagon bias: this reflects our tendency to go along with the belief systems of whatever group we are involved with. The more people we are surrounded by, the more likely we'll be to modify our beliefs to fit theirs. Cultural indoctrination, religious doctrine, family teachings, groupthink and other belief systems we are exposed to often determine what we believe. Questions: do you sometimes go along with your group's belief system? How do you justify a contrary position? 4. Self-serving bias, a tendency for people to evaluate ambiguous information in a way beneficial to their own interests. The tendency to acquire and maintain beliefs that benefit our own interest and goals is widespread. It belongs to the dying paradigm and doesn't promote achieving an open and inclusive worldview. Unless that is our self-interest and goal. Questions: do you sometimes interpret information to fit your own interests? How do you try to avoid self-deception? 5. Publication bias, a tendency to believe information that is published or reported in the mainstream media or by other seemingly reliable source without asking too many questions. Think back to Section 1 and the conflicts of interest that may be involved between the general public and those operating within systemic hierarchies solely motivated by profit, power and control. Question: have you ever stopped to question the integrity of the information that is published and widely accepted as factual? If at first you think that you are insusceptible to these kinds of belief biases, then think again. We are all affected by them to a certain degree. In today's busy world we need them to prevent us from being bombarded and overloaded with information. They serve as a filtering system whereby we subconsciously only register information which we perceive as relevant and which are supportive of our core beliefs. Filtering the external world allows us to take necessary actions in our lives in order to function in an increasingly hectic world. However, what is helpful is if we can consciously explore which of our filtering systems are hindering our growth and ultimate fulfillment and which ones are serving us. 28 page. Our beliefs lead us to make huge generalizations in life. We have a tendency to make generalizations based on past experience, what we have been taught and on news and information that we have been repeatedly exposed to. In effect, our mass generalizations become prejudices. Rarely do we stop to question our prejudices and assumption, let alone our belief systems. But it's an incredibly liberating process to do so. When we begin to question a lot of the generalizations and opinions we hold, we actually find that we didn't choose them with our intellect, rationale or even free. We were programmed to hold them. Below are some examples where we commonly generalize according to our belief filters. Finish the statements and you'll see how commonly we filter the information around us. Most politicians are. Most Africans are. Most Americans are. Most successful people are. Most women/men are. Most Muslims are. Most celebrities are. Most students are. Most elderly people are. Updating our beliefs, out with the old and in with the new. For most of us, we didn't think for ourselves that much in our earlier years. We pretty much accepted what we were told. We trusted what we were told by our parents and those we perceived as in a position of authority like our teachers, religion or culture, etc. There's nothing wrong with this because as children we have to learn from somewhere. The problem lies in that we often end up running these same belief systems which may have served us as an infant but no longer serve us as a grown adult. We take our childhood belief systems into adulthood without ever questioning or exploring them along the way. We already know that our subconscious program dictates the choices and actions we make today. The problem comes when the choices and actions of the past make us unhappy today. Essentially, we engage with our present using the outdated beliefs of the past. You are different, your circumstances are different, and the world is different to when you were a child. People in the world are continually changing, and we need to allow for our beliefs to also change if we are to move forward rather than spin our wheel in frustration. If our lives aren't currently working for us, then it is because we are running outdated beliefs. Let me share a personal example. As a child, my mum was overly protective of me, being her first child. She was always on the lookout for danger and ways that I could potentially come to harm. For example, I always had to hold her hand when we went out to the town. I was always told not to talk to strangers and that there were bad people around that I had to be careful of. If I had any problems in school, she was straight down there to sort the issue out with my teachers. Her overprotectiveness carried on into my teenage years, and as you 29 page can probably imagine, we had some explosive arguments as I tried to assert my independence as a hormonal teenager. I love my mother dearly and we get on great today. I also recognize that her fear for my safety and well-being was because she cared and loved me so much that she didn't want anything bad to happen to me. In fact, her overprotection probably served me well at the time, considering I was pretty hyperactive as a kid. However, as I became more self-aware in my mid-20s, I recognized how I had inherited my mum's belief that I had to be overly cautious in order to remain safe. So the result was I found it very challenging to venture out of my comfort zone and embrace new experiences. Subconsciously, I was worried about my ability to remain safe and look after myself. I was running an outdated belief system. Of course, being overly cautious was never going to serve me as an adult or an entrepreneur. Once I recognized where this outdated belief had come from, I worked on updating it to "I can handle myself in any situation." Every so often I get echoes of my mother's voice saying, "Be careful." But on the whole, I now believe I can trust life and handle the things it brings my way. For us to create an internal life that supports what we want our external life to look like, we need to increase our awareness of our core belief system to see whether it is helping or hindering us. You can start by reflecting on the 4 questions below. 1. What beliefs and ways of being have you inherited from your parents and childhood upbringing? 2. What areas of your life are currently not as you would like them to be? 3. What behaviors do you have a tendency to adopt in those areas? 4. What must be the beliefs that are driving those behaviors? Our conscious and subconscious minds, as our core beliefs are held in our subconscious mind, we can only update them when we become conscious of what they are and how they are limit us. Generally speaking, we can define our conscious mind as the thinking part of ourselves that is associated with our personal identity. Typically, it involves our logic, intellect, rational and decision-making. It is the version of ourselves we show to the world on a daily basis. Our subconscious mind, on the other hand, is where our programmed learned behaviors, responses and actions reside. The majority of our mental and emotional reactions are processed in the subconscious mind, which subsequently drives how we engage with the world. To understand how susceptible we are to programming during our earlier years, it is helpful for us to understand how our brain functions. This will also help you to understand the powerful belief-changing technique I will share with you shortly. The image on the next page shows you 4 brainwave patterns which are associated with varying levels of consciousness. We spend most of our waking lives in the beta brainwave state. It is our active consciousness. It has a high electronic frequency, 14 to 30 Hz, and is associated with our ability to concentrate. Unfortunately, it is also linked with some undesirable qualities such as stress, anxiety and disease in the body. Alpha is a lower frequency brainwave, 813.9 Hz, and is associated with a more relaxed state of being and our ability to learn. It is the first of the 3 programmable states of mind. At this level we begin to access the unconscious mind. Theta. 30 page. Brainwaves are a slower frequency again, 4 to 7.9 Hz, taking us deeper into relaxation and opening us up further to suggestion. Delta is even slower and goes deeper still. We become increasingly more programmable as we step down into alpha, theta and delta brainwave states. Age 0 to 2 years, we are predominantly in delta brainwave states. Although this is sleep for adults, very young children produce delta brainwaves when they are conscious. They are downloading massive amounts of environmental and emotional data from their surroundings and storing it in the subconscious for later use. Age 2 to 6 years, around this age we switch to predominantly theta brainwave states which represent increased creativity and integration. Here children tend to develop imaginary worlds and mix up their external and external worlds. Age 6+ years, from the age of 6 we exist mainly in the alpha brainwave range up until the age of 12 when beta brainwaves become the predominant state. At the age of 12 we enter secondary school where reason and logic become the primary means of learning. So up until the age of 6 we are very impressionable and highly programmable. Scientists have found this to be the super learning state, which is why children learn and retain information so well. This is why it is so easy for a bilingual parent to teach their children a second language if it's spoken to them around this age. Our early years are when we download the core information and opinions that form the essence of our feelings of self-worth as well as our innate gifts and abilities. 31 page. So if we're going to update our beliefs, it's not enough to impose our will over our thoughts. This rarely lasts. Just think about how many New Year resolutions get broken within the first month. We have to access our subconscious mind, which can be done through the body via the living matrix, which we will look at in the next subsection. Another way I have found very effective is to recreate the programmable brainwave states. Here we can reprogram our beliefs when we are in a state that is very receptive to suggestion and learning. Access your subconscious in a matter of minutes. It's widely known that meditation has a whole range of benefits to our well-being. Primarily because it helps to reduce our beta brainwave activity and access the deeper levels which promote relaxation and internal balance. The results being enhanced mental and emotional well-being. However, to get to these states requires practice, time and discipline, which is not always easy to commit to in this busy world. I was introduced to a meditation tool by a mentor of mine which actually takes the effort out of disciplining an active mind to achieve deep relaxation. I have been using it for quite some time now and have to say that it is by far the most effective and powerful meditation tool I have come across. I have tried several of them out there. I am going to recommend that you purchase one of the meditation products from Eco Institute. I have no affiliation with the company. I have bought the complete set for $79.95, which is incredibly reasonable compared to some of the programs out there. In fact, I would go as far as to say its technology is actually better than the more expensive alternatives. You can get a single program for I believe $29.95, at the time of writing this. They also have a 20% off coupon for all new customer purchases as well as 60-day 110% money-back guarantee, which makes your purchase a no-brainer. If you want to test it before committing to purchase, they also have a free 8-minute trial available for download on their site. I am not going to explain how it works as they explain everything on their site. All I am going to say is that by simply listening to the meditation tracks through your personal stereo headphones, the technology effortlessly creates an alpha, theta or delta brainwave state, depending on the track you purchase, within only a few minutes. This tool really does do what it says on the tin. 32 page. Once your brain is in a receptive brainwave state, alpha/theta/delta, which is achieved through using the Eco Institute technology, the second part of process is to update our subconscious mind through the use of belief statements. Belief statements: you integrate your new beliefs by repeating a belief statement to yourself whilst you are in a programmable state of mind. It's similar to using a meditation mantra. The mediation tracks from the Eco Institute are about 30 minutes in length, and during this time you will intuitively feel when a belief has been integrated into your subconscious. You may have a sense of knowing, feel an emotional change, or experience a deep sense of self-acceptance when you repeat the statement. I would suggest only integrate a maximum of 2 belief statements per 30-minute session for maximum effectiveness. If you can commit to at least one 30-minute session a day for the next 30 days, I guarantee you will start to notice the benefits of your new belief. Your external world will begin to harmonize with the positive inner changes taking place as your beliefs, feelings, thoughts and actions become aligned. This method of updating our core beliefs is something I practice on a daily basis and really does work. Examples of belief statements. Belief statements are like affirmations, in that you affirm what you do want rather than what you don't want. For example, my heart is open to myself and others versus I don't want to fear getting hurt by another relationship. You can create a belief statement on anything you wish to experience more of in life. For example, my fears give me lessons that lead me to wisdom and power. I can easily access a field of universal intelligence. I deserve to be happy. It's easy for me to receive love from _ I trust the decisions I make. I see beauty in all parts of my body. I am richly rewarded for doing the work I love. Now the universal spirit provides me with all I need and desire. You are only really limited by your creativity and desires when creating statements to use during this belief-changing technique. We've looked at how we can update our belief systems by essentially reprogramming our subconscious mind through accessing deeper brainwave patterns. However, the brain is not the only intelligent organ in the body which we can change in order to express more of what we want in life. Our heart and emotions play just as important a role when it comes to updating our beliefs. The power of emotions. In the first section of this ebook we briefly touched on the fact that emotions are an innate power and that we have been taught to ignore and negate them. In the second section we expanded on this idea and looked at how our emotions are just energy in motion. We also explored how they serve as a feedback mechanism and let us know how proficiently we are creating and manifesting our thoughts into things according to the law of cause and effect. Yes, our emotions are indeed powerful, and what we 33 page say and think largely is determined by how we feel, which again is determined by we believe about ourselves and the world. As you can see, mastering ourselves in order to create the life we truly desire is a dynamic process, but that doesn't mean it's complicated. Just to remind you, we only have to master ourselves in 4 key areas: our beliefs, feelings, thoughts and actions. If we approach change in the order of belief first, followed by our feelings, thoughts and actions, then the achievement of our desired goals becomes easy and cohesive rather than a struggle stemming from internal conflict. In section 2 we established that there is a lot more to us than what exists between the top of our head and the tip of our toes. We have 2 communication systems, a chemical signaling system which we know as the nervous system and an electromagnetic signaling system known as the living matrix. On a very basic level, our nervous system represents the physical part of us and the living matrix represents the energetic. We have looked at how to update our beliefs from the physical perspective by reprogramming our subconscious mind through accessing lower levels of brainwave states. However, the brain, responsible for what we believe, and the heart, responsible for what we feel, have to be in sync in order for us to express our complete potential in the physical world. Generally speaking, if our beliefs, thoughts and actions are in alignment with our goals and desires, we will feel good. If there is conflict between any of them, we will experience feelings of uneasiness and not feel so good. It's a fail-proof way to tell if we are in sync with where we want to go. Heart intelligence. Contrary to mainstream belief, our brain is not the only center of intelligence we have available within us. Few of us know that the heart is an organ that can learn, remember, feel and sense independently of our brain. researchers at the leading edge of science have discovered that the heart is so much more than merely a vessel that pumps blood around the body. The Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine featured an article which discussed some exciting experiments on heart intelligence. The HeartMath Institute is a visionary and leading-edge research institute dedicated to studying heart coherence and its health benefits. They have found that the heart seems to have the ability to know the emotional ambience of an event before it actually occurs. In 2005, Dr. Rollin McCarthy, from the HeartMath Institute, discovered that the heart can perceive the emotional future of things in a precognitive capacity that is before we actually experience an event. The heart seems to sense intuitively and in turn sends information to the brain to prepare for a response. This discovery really is paradigm shifting, so let's have a look at the sorts of experiments that allow this scientific conclusion to be reached. In one experiment, participants were sat in front of a computer and shown a series of images that fell into two categories: those with non-emotional content, a basket of fruit or landscape, and those that were emotionally stimulating, erotic, car crashes, an autopsy. They were all hooked up to equipment which measured their heartbeat, skin conductivity, brainwaves and other responses of the nervous system and organ function. Participants were shown images which were randomly selected by the computer and displayed at 6-second intervals. After the session was over, the researchers had a record 34-page, of which pictures were shown and in which order, as well as the participants' physiological responses during the session. What they discovered was completely unexpected. The participants' heart and other internal responses responded as expected. They were aroused by the emotionally stimulating images and remained calm, at their baseline measures, for the neutral ones. What was eye-opening was that the heart was the first part of the internal physiology to respond to the stimulus, seconds before the brain did. The heart responded and then sent information to the brain, which goes against the belief of mainstream biology, which says the brain is the command center of the body. What was stranger still was that the heart responded even before the picture displayed on the screen. It seemed to have a precognitive ability and be able to sense the future and then send information to the brain to respond accordingly. So if one of the car crash images was going to be displayed, the heart seemed to sense it coming and sent a warning signal to the brain to prepare the body. This precognitive ability would register on the monitoring equipment up to 6 seconds before the image was displayed to the participant. I think that you'll agree that this is a pretty amazing finding. It really drives home the fact that we respond subconsciously before we do consciously, and our heart plays a big role in our emotional lives. It gets stranger. Another incredible finding that I am excited to share with you shows us the innate intelligence of our heart as a thinking organ in its own right, complete with its own set of memories. This discovery has been documented by Dr. Paul Pierce, who has written about some fascinating stories concerning heart transplant patients in his book The Heart's Code. Dr. Pierce tells us of one such example concerning an 8-year-old girl. This 8-year-old girl received a heart transplant from a 10-year-old girl who had been murdered. After the transplant, the 8-year-old girl started to have nightmares of the man who had killed her donor. Her mother became concerned and took her to see a psychiatrist, who after a couple of sessions thought that her nightmares may not be just a stress response to her life-changing operation. The psychiatrist could not deny what was being told by the child, and her mother too started to suspect that the information may be helpful to the police. It took a while before her mother felt comfortable with involving the authorities, who eventually came and started to ask the girl questions. Miraculously, with the description of the man, the murder weapon and the circumstances of the crime, the police were able to track down the murderer, and he was eventually convicted for his crime. There are many such stories which Dr. Pierce has recounted on heart transplant recipients. He came to the conclusion that the heart somehow stores memories, and when placed into another person's body they become available to the recipient. Other researchers have had similar findings, although not necessarily associated with heart transplant patients. Their findings related more generally to donor recipients. They have found that recipients suddenly were taking on new behaviors, opinions, abilities and habits such as liking new food, developing creative abilities, using different phrases and generally shifting deep aspects of their personality. When information of the donor could be found, they discovered that these new behaviors matched those of the donor. Heart intuition and intelligence takes the understanding 35 page of who we are to a whole new level of potential in terms of thinking who we are, what influences us and how we interact with the world. Knowing that our heart is a sensory and memory organ, we have the ability to use it as a tool that is equally as powerful as our brain. We have the potential to experience greater insights, accomplishments, peace, creativity and generally speaking fully express our greatness. Through the heart we are able to harmonize our inner and outer worlds. The heart is our main electrical power center and produces 40 to 60 times more power than our brains. It is the hub of our living matrix, our energy communication system. We can feel our pulse in pretty much any area of our body, and the reason is the electrical field it produces permeates every cell in our body. We looked at the living matrix in section 2, which explains how our thoughts and feelings are communicated to every cell in our body via this electrical/energy communication network. The information carried through this network in terms of our thoughts and feelings radiates outside of our body in a 360-degree field which extends up to 15 feet beyond our body as shown in the previous image. This is why we are able to sense emotional atmospheres when we walk into a room, for example, after two people have just finished a heated argument. There is no five-sense information that informs us if they have just had a blazing argument, but when you walk in you sense the tension in the air and probably respond by feeling a little uncomfortable. When our hearts and brains are in sync, we have coherence between our inner world and outer world, which is a powerful combination for moving forward in a desired direction. We already know that what we believe determines what and how we feel, our emotions and what we think. To create greater coherence between our hearts and brains, we have to make it our priority to adopt beliefs that support where we want to go in life and at the same time allow ourselves to feel good and keep feeling better. How we feel is a strong indicator of whether or not our core beliefs are supportive of the kind of life we want to create. When we're running outdated beliefs that are not supportive of our desires, we experience internal conflict which translates to stress in the body, and as a result how we think and feel becomes negative. It can seem as though our feelings/emotions and thoughts are random occurrences dictated by what is seemingly going on in our external world. Without a certain level of consciousness over what goes on in our internal worlds, this can seem to be the case, and we are often subject to the whims of our thoughts and emotions. We get used to feeling and thinking a certain way about ourselves and the world around us. If we're happy in life and have everything we desire already, then there is no need for us to update our beliefs. However, if we're honest with ourselves, most of us desire more of something in our lives: financial freedom, peace, happiness, healthy and loving relationships, knowledge, etc. It's a natural human condition to seek to improve and evolve throughout life, and how we feel, to a large extent, determines the quality of experiences we have. As we discussed in section 2, the unified field of which we are implicitly a part of, responds to the energy we project into it, in the form of the feelings and thoughts held within our individual energy fields. 36 page. Feel as good as you can and keep feeling better. Look at the chart showing the scale of human emotions which was developed by Abraham Hicks. Pioneers of the law of attraction. At the bottom, that is the lowest energetic feelings we can experience, are fear, grief, depression and powerlessness. These feelings translate to a dense, heavy energy pattern. Think of how people feel when they are in this emotional state. They feel consumed by a black cloud and a sense of hopelessness. They are lethargic, heavy and dense with little energy or vitality to engage with life. At the opposite end of the scale are the highest emotional energies we can experience: joy, appreciation, empowered freedom and love. We are on top of the world when we feel like this, Life is an absolute pleasure, and we have an abundance of energy to share with everyone and everything. When our energy reaches this level on a sustainable basis, this is when we attract desirable experiences. The unified field responds to the energetic information we project out and returns to us matching information which shows up as people, opportunities, situations etc., which if positive, is referred to as synchronicity. This is why happy people tend to have more pleasurable experiences than someone who is a natural pessimist. I acknowledge that it is incredibly difficult for someone who is experiencing fear, grief, depression and powerlessness to start feeling joyful, appreciative, empowered, free and loving in a short period of time. The jump from one end of the scale to the other is too large and is inconceivable to someone consumed by such dense energy. So the key is to feel a little better with the aim of reaching the top of the scale. For example, someone who is depressed would feel better by expressing anger. Even though anger is still an unpleasant feeling, it feels better than depression as it is less dense. Your life force energy is able to flow relatively more freely, which in turn has a positive effect on the nervous system. If you remember back to section 2, we have two internal communication systems. The nervous system, which handles with neurotransmitters, chemicals and hormones, and the living matrix, which handles the flow of life force energy around the body. When we experience low energetic states, it translates to an incoherent heart pattern. The heart then sends signals to our brain, which responds by releasing stress hormones into the body. Over a period of time, our body becomes so used to the chemicals associated with feeling bad that we actually become addicted to the chemicals our body associates with feeling bad. Our brains develop specific neuropathways which relate to negative states of being, and with regular use, stress, they become deeply grooved within us. This is why it's so easy for us to fall back. 37 page. Into the habit of feeling a certain way, especially when we attempt to update our beliefs and improve how we feel. What we believe and how we feel have to be aligned for progress to be made. That is, there needs to be coherence between our brains and hearts. I'm about to share with you an extremely powerful method for removing unwanted feelings associated with an issue so that they can't be activated again. With regular use, you will be able to predominantly feel good as you begin to update your beliefs to support the life you truly desire. Introducing meridian tapping. How does it work? Dr. Bruce Rosen at Harvard Medical School experimented with needling the acupuncture point on the hand, known to help ease pain. What he found was that stimulating this acupressure point actually caused immediate blood flow changes to the amygdala and areas of the brain that relate to mood, pain and cravings. The reduction of blood flow to these areas leads to an increase in endorphins, the brain's natural pleasure chemicals. Other research within this field has found without doubt that certain acupressure points correspond with precise areas in the brain. When our brain's limbic system is activated, our nervous system responds by activating our fight-slash-flight response, which is associated with stress and primal feelings of danger. Therefore, by stimulating certain acupressure points, we can easily reduce the impact of negative and persistent emotional patterns which may have been causing stress on our nervous systems for years. Meridian tapping is one such method that is freely available for us to use. It allows us to break limiting emotional patterns that prevent us from expressing our potential. Basically, the technique I'm about to share with you works by using your 4 fingertips to tap the appropriate acupressure point whilst thinking of the offending emotion, issue or pain. The stimulation of the acupressure point then sends signals to the brain, and the neuropathway associated with this emotional problem is disrupted. Instead, neurochemical endorphins are released and the emotional energy is diffused, so the neuropathway will not activate in the same way again. This is an extremely powerful tool which is available all the time, as it requires nothing more than an awareness of the acupressure points, which are highlighted in the following diagram, and your fingertips. The meridian tapping sequence 1. To start the process, by rubbing on your sore spot pressure point, see diagram, in a circular motion. At the same time, think of an issue, person or event that is causing you stress or an emotional reaction. It should provoke an emotional charge or feeling that is undesirable. 2. Rate the level of emotional charge you have when you think about the issue from 1 to 10, with 10 being high intensity and 1 being not really an issue. 3. Rub the sore spot in a circular motion with your fingers. Say to yourself, out loud or in your head, what issue you have the intent of releasing, for example, anxious about business presentation tomorrow. 4. To get rid of the emotional and psychological stress, tap each of the 9 acupressure points 10 times. A. You can tap with either the left or the right hand. Alternatively, you can use both hands to tap each side. B. You don't need to tap hard at all, it shouldn't be uncomfortable. 38 page. C. The order in which you tap doesn't really matter, but I have found it easier to start at the top of my head and work down. D. I will list the emotions associated with each acupressure point beneath the following diagram so you can choose a sequence that best suits your needs. 5. Continue to think of the issue whilst tapping each point and keep repeating to yourself the issue you are releasing throughout the entire sequence of 9 points, for example, anxious about business presentation tomorrow. 6. After completing one sequence, rate your emotional charge. It should have noticeably reduced and you should feel relief. If you have gone from, say, an intensity of 10 down to a 6, repeat the sequence again until you feel complete relief from the issue. This technique is so simple yet incredibly powerful, you'll really surprise yourself at how quickly you can eliminate emotional issues. As you commit to using this personal tool, you will start to become aware of your emotions diffusing as you tap. With time you will be able to feel your emotional energy moving, and this level of consciousness will eventually transpire into your day-to-day life, making it possible to master your emotional energy in the present moment. 39 page. The acupressure points. 1. The sore point. Start here by focusing on the undesirable feeling and stating the issue you want to release whilst rubbing this point in a circular motion. 2. Top of the head. This is the crown of your head and many meridians meet at this point. Removes self-critical thinking, lack of focus, and improves balanced thinking. 3. Eyebrows. This is the inner part of your eyebrows and corresponds with the bladder meridian. Removes sadness, hurt, impatience, trauma, and helps to restore peace and calmness. 4. Side of eye. This is your temple area and corresponds with the gallbladder meridian. Removes rage, anger, resentment, fear of change, and helps improve clarity and compassion. 5. Under eye. This is the bone beneath your eye. Tap at the point below your pupil. It corresponds to the stomach meridian. Removes fear, anxiety, worry, and nervousness, and helps improve calmness and feelings of security. 6. Under nose. This is the groove between your nose and top lip and is the governing meridian. Removes embarrassment, shame, guilt, grief, fear of ridicule, powerlessness, and helps to improve self-acceptance, personal power, and compassion towards self and others. 7. Chin. This is the dip between your bottom lip and bony part of your chin and is the central meridian. Removes shame, uncertainty, confusion, embarrassment, and helps improve confidence, clarity, and certainty. 8. Collarbone. This is 2 inches below the top of the collarbone and corresponds with the kidney meridian. Removes indecision, feeling stuck, worry, fear, and helps improve confidence and clarity to move forward. 9. Underarm. This is 4 inches below your armpit and corresponds to the spleen meridian. Removes guilt, worry, obsessing, insecurity, hopelessness, and helps improve clarity, self-esteem, and relaxation. 10. Karate chop. This is the inside side of your hands and corresponds to the small intestine meridian. Removes self-doubt and low self-esteem, helps to improve self-confidence. Effortlessly master your thoughts. In this section we have explored how our belief systems and the way we feel determines the degree of mastery we have over our lives. At our most fundamental level, we are specific patterns of energy comprised of the predominant feelings we have about ourselves and the world around us. We subconsciously project this energy into the unified field of energy, which responds with experiences that match our projected energy pattern. We have discovered that we can quickly and effectively transform the energy we are projecting out there, and therefore we actually have control over what we want to experience. Now we know how to reprogram our subconscious beliefs through lower brainwave states and release undesirable emotional patterns. We have the opportunity to move forward towards our goals with an understanding that we are the ultimate creators of our human experience. 40 page. Once we make the decision to take full responsibility for the content of our minds and how we feel, with the aim of feeling good and to keep feeling better, positive thinking will become a natural outcome. For this reason, there is no reason for us to apply willpower and force to change our thoughts, as they are determined by what we believe and how we feel. By consciously focusing on changing our beliefs and improving the way we feel, very little, if any, effort is required to think positively. Just be aware that during a period of transformation that is updating your core beliefs, it is perfectly normal for negative thoughts to come up during the process until we have fully integrated our new way of being. If you do catch yourself out feeling or thinking negatively, just use the meridian tapping technique. I promise eventually your negative thoughts will completely lose any grip they currently have over you in a relatively short space of time. When the brain and heart, that is our beliefs and feelings, are in alignment, they translate into inspired thinking. When we act in accordance with these inspired thoughts, it translates to powerful, focused action towards our destiny, and it creates a feeling of certainty whereby we know that we simply cannot fail. This is the active principle behind our conscious application of the law of cause and effect. You are literally capable of miracles and will only ever be limited by your core beliefs, the way you feel, and trusting yourself enough to take action on your inspired thoughts. Now we have this knowledge, let's conclude by exploring how to find a purpose through which we can express our potential in the world and live as the change. 41 page. Section 4, Expressing the Incredible You. Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors where there were only walls. Joseph Campbell. Who are you? Do we know who we are? More specifically, do you know who you are? Philosophers and scientists have spent centuries attempting to define who and what we are. We commonly answer in terms of our relationship, mother, father, son, daughter, etc., or professional status, or some other surface-level description such as our personality. But I'm going to suggest that in order for us to understand ourselves, discover our individual potentials and control our destinies, we're going to have to delve beneath our social personalities. The word personality comes from the Latin word persona, meaning mask. It is the version of ourselves we show to the world depending on the context we find ourselves in, the roles we find ourselves playing in everyday life. So, who lies behind these masks we wear in everyday life? Who is the self? Science tells that we are 98% of our atoms are replaced every year. I was amazed to find that, every 5 days our stomach lining completely renews itself, every 30 days our skin is completely regenerated, every 6 weeks we essentially have a new liver, every year our brain recycles its cells into completely new ones, in less than 4 years we have a completely new body down to the last atom. With this being the case, there is clearly more to us than a physical body which dies, regenerates and renews itself over the course of our life. Who is the stable self that we all feel we have if we're not just a mechanistic machine made up of biological cells? Throughout this book we have touched on quantum physics and explored how the physical world of atoms isn't as solid or immutable as mainstream science would have us believe. Rather, it provides us with a revolutionary vision of ourselves as human beings, that we are unique patterns of energy, determined by our thoughts and feelings, and we show up in the world as mind and a body made up of more than 50 trillion cells. As our levels of self-awareness and understanding increase, We evolve from being conscious activity of our bodies to conscious activity of our mind and eventually to conscious activity of our energy or spirit. As we update and make changes to our beliefs, our bioenergetic field changes accordingly, which affects everything from our DNA to the experiences we attract in our life. The profound question is, how big do you dare to be? The only limits that impact your energy field are quite literally the limits you place on what you believe you are capable of. The key is to break free from the imposed programming of the control systems which have an interest in our ignorance of this knowledge. Section 3 has looked at 2 powerful tools available to help you update and transform the way you see yourself and the world, so you can quite literally take steps to transform into the highest vision of yourself against all the odds. The 42-page world is not as solid and immutable as we have been told, and this is the ultimate knowledge that is being kept from humanity, as discussed in Section 1. As soon as humanity awakens to this innate power they have been kept from, the vision of a new world based on peace, love, prosperity and abundance will no longer be a utopian concept, but a realistic possibility based on leading-edge science and the wisdom of our ancients. How big can you be? In his book Perennial Philosophy, 1964, Aldous Huxley describes many levels of reality, stating that consciousness was the building block of all of them. He goes on to describe the universe as essentially a great big thought machine. As humans, he explained that we have the ability to access the entirety of the universe and play in the field of all possibility via our consciousness, the part of our non-local mind connecting us to the unified field which links us to everyone and everything. Pretty mind-blowing to see yourself in this way, huh? Our personalities are localized in our social roles and played out through our physical bodies. However, there is an I that is far more expansive by nature. It is universal, non-local and immaterial. Perennial philosophy, like many of the philosophies and wisdom from mystics, sages and indigenous cultures, teach us that our life's purpose is to become part of the universal, non-localized consciousness of which we are a part at our truest and most fundamental nature. Our task as a human being is to awaken from our sleep and realize our grandeur, to become one with this universal intelligence, then help and inspire others to do the same. Leading-edge scientists tend to agree. We are not physical machines that have learned to think, we are impulses of intelligence that have created the physical body, according to our beliefs. Deepak Chopra, medial doctor and author. A human being is a part of a whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest. A kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein, theoretical physicist and founder of general relativity. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Max Planck, one of the fathers of quantum physics. I fully understand that for people to believe in themselves according to this leading-edge scientific vision may come at a real stretch. However, if the desire exists to discover this part of yourself, then the 43-page information in Section 3 is there to assist you in expanding into this daring new way of being. I assure you from my personal experience that once you make the decision to connect with this part of yourself, it's as if the universe conspires to support your awakening, and your journey through life will become more magical, fulfilling, liberating and profound. The question is never are you capable of becoming all you dream of, rather the only question you have to answer is how big do you want to be? Creativity. The expression of the incredible you. At the end of Section 3, we addressed that our thoughts are a natural outcome of the beliefs we hold and the feelings they result in. When we feel good, We naturally think positively, our thoughts become inspired and serve as a positive force to propel us towards our highest vision, however only to the extent we act upon them. It's worthwhile noting here that the word inspired comes from two words, in spirit, a point where your feelings and thoughts are aligned with the universal consciousness, that which animates the physical world, otherwise known as spirit. Our inspired thoughts require a creative outlet, in fact they need a creative outlet. Without a creative channel to flow through, this inspired energy can actually work against us and have a negative impact on our well-being. If we fail to take action and follow through on our inspired thoughts, what happens is they circulate around our physical and energetic systems in the form of unutilized energy and begin to build pressure and create blocks in our energy body. We know from previous sections that any blockages to the flow of our life force energy results in dis-ease and discomfort within the body, which plays out through our nervous system. As a result, when we fail to take action on our inspiration, we actually start to feel bad, tired and even frustrated, as this built-up inspired energy condenses and results in a dense energetic emotion. So quite simply, using the tools in section 3, we have to let go and follow through with the flow. We need to trust and allow ourselves to become creative channels of universal expression. Let me share another personal example with you. A few years back I had a vision. I really wanted to serve in some way and assist with the global awakening. I was charged with this inspired vision, yet I was so hung up on how I was going to do this. In my mind it seemed like an impossibility. How could I help people to see through the program and embrace a much more expansive version of themselves? I had an inspired vision, yet at the time I wasn't fully aware of how to employ the law of cause and effect. I didn't realize my subconscious beliefs were holding me back. I became frustrated and as a result seemed to be attracting people and situations that made me even more frustrated. In hindsight, I can clearly see the root causes of my frustration. I was blocking my inspiration with my intellect and the limiting beliefs that had been lying dormant within me for all those years. Making myself vulnerable by speaking out on my personal truth was one of them. At that time I didn't have access to the tools I shared with you in section 3, which may have made things a little easier. I did it the hard way through trial and error, sometimes laughing with joy and other times 44 page. Crying with frustration. As a fear began to set in, I started to spin my tires by exerting so much mental energy fighting against the flow that I became exhausted and completely lost belief that I would ever be able to make a positive impact to the lives of others. I wanted to give people hope and a way forward, yet at the time I couldn't even do this for myself. My fears became a self-fulfilling prophecy, that is, right up until the point I took responsibility for my situation. Once I got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, I stood back and recognized that all my frustrations were self-afflicted and that I had lost sight of the bigger picture. In effect, I couldn't see the wood, my way forward, through the trees, my intellect. So never one to back down from a challenge, I set about learning everything I could that would allow me to free myself from fear, frustration and limiting beliefs so that I could serve others. Do you know what I realized? My intellect's need to know all the facts, figures, strategy and outcome had blocked the flow of my creativity at the expense of my sense of well-being, and as a result I was unable to take empowered and inspired action. I then began to realize that creativity is the substance of inspired thinking, and to place intellectual limitations on what we create squelches all emerging inspiration. Inspiration is the language of the universal intelligence or consciousness, and it expresses itself through our feelings, which are translated into our inspired thoughts. Creativity is the vessel that allows for us to express our inspiration into the physical world, and not logic, planning and rational thinking. It stems from the need to be in control of the whole process, but remember, we are co-creating with a universal intelligence that is far more intelligent than our intellectual left brains. My self-imposed barriers of logic, reason and control prevented me from expressing myself authentically because I feared the reactions others may have had to my insights. By limiting my creativity in such a way, It was blocking the flow of my inspiration and having a negative impact on how I generally felt. But thankfully, with commitment, I broke free from my imposed limitations. I decided to trust in the universal intelligence, of which we are all a part, and this epoch is one of a number of manifestations that has resulted from this decision. The three modes of creativity. Human creativity falls into three principal areas: creation, the making of things; recreation, the entertaining side of life; procreation, the creation of the future. We engage with all three of these expressions of creativity throughout our lives and quite often confuse them. Typically, creation involves what we make in terms of life experiences, a career, business, home, family, lifestyle, etc. Recreation is the fun and joy we create in our lives, what we do to enjoy ourselves outside of our commitments and responsibilities. Procreation is any activities we engage with that contribute to making a future world, predominantly raising future generations to take over from us when we leave. Typically, these methods of expression are viewed as independent activities which cross over at various 45-page stages in our lives. What I am going to suggest is that by combining all three we have the ability to create cohesive, purposeful, abundant and joyful lives where we are paid to do what we love and enjoy whilst advancing our collective evolution. This lifestyle is not reserved for the lucky few, as we have determined there is no such thing as luck. We create our own experiences. The opportunity to live out your dreams as the incredible you is all dependent on your willingness to update what you believe, feel and therefore think about yourself and the world so that they are supportive of your goal. The next step is to have the courage to then act on the visions you receive without getting caught up on the how, which will only limit your creative expression. So let's conclude by looking at how to express the incredible you and lead an authentic, cohesive life which inspires you every waking moment of your life. Success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile ideal. Success is really a journey of self-discovery and realization of our potential rather than how much money we bring in every month. This journey begins as soon as we identify a purpose or ideal which we are committed to serving. The human condition is such that when we find a meaningful way to enhance the lives of others, we experience a deep sense of satisfaction that extends beyond the material rewards. Our hearts become stirred in the process of realizing that we are connected to and serving something so much bigger than our own individual needs. When a goal is motivated by the desire to make money alone, success becomes an arduous destination rather than an unfolding journey of self-discovery and the realization of how we can master our own physical reality. Remember, we are an intrinsic part of universal intelligence which continually seeks to express itself through our individual experiences and desires. The key is to direct our thoughts into creative action with the intent of joyfully serving and adding value to the lives of others in some way. When money becomes our main motivator for creating, fear and frustration or exhaustion tend to creep in, which squelches our inspiration, and that's when we end up feeling disillusioned and spinning tires, moving nowhere fast. I'm not saying money is not important to our fulfillment. Of course it is, in terms of providing us with the freedom to experience the lifestyle we desire. However, money is simply an exchange of energy for the value we offer to others. The more value you give to others, in terms of your ability to help them solve their problem, which could be anything, and we'll look at this shortly, the more members, customers, clients or interested people you will attract, and therefore the more income you will bring in. This is what Earl Nightingale meant when he said success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile ideal. As you expand your knowledge within a particular field, you increase your value to others. People are always happy to exchange money for something which they perceive will be of value to them. Therefore, as your knowledge/skill set expands and evolves, so does your income. Again, it comes down to the natural law of cause and effect, which states that every thought, intent and action generates a force of energy that returns to us in like kind. If expanding our knowledge results in an increase of income and at the same time we want the opportunity to create purposeful, abundant and joyful lives where we are paid to do what we love and enjoy whilst advancing our collective evolution. Then it makes sense for us to expand our knowledge in a field which fuels us with a sense of purpose and brings us joy. 46 page. Finding your purpose. Those who go through life questioning whether there is more to life than what they have so far experienced in life tend to have a distinct feeling of lack in their lives, but often they can't quite put their finger on it. A bit like an itch you can't scratch. They're aware that there is an underlying discomfort in their lives, and no matter how much they try to satisfy the discomfort through consumption of material comforts, food, alcohol, drugs and emotional dramas, the relief is only ever short-lived. What many of these people are missing is a sense of meaning and purpose in life which extends beyond their own self-interest. When we become aware that this sense of dissatisfaction comes from a lack of purpose, the flip side is we can become frustrated trying to search for and find a purpose in life. So in this final section, I want to share with you how we can remove this mild, ongoing dissatisfaction by awakening that part of you who suspects that you are actually destined to make a difference but aren't quite sure what or how. It is also written for those who are inspired by the idea of creating cohesive, purposeful, abundant and joyful life where you are paid to do what you love whilst advancing our collective evolution. So, how do you go about finding your purpose? I've spoken with many people who get hung up on finding their life's purpose, and the more they seek and search, the more elusive this idea of a life purpose becomes. While there are those in life who seem to have been destined to walk a specific path of purpose within their lives, this is largely uncommon. What tends to be the case is that people create and make a purpose for themselves which later evolves, expands or even changes completely as they go through life. There are 3 very insightful ways to uncover a potential purpose to serve, and they are: curiosity, a cause, activism. I will explore the difference between them in just a moment, but first I want to share this quote from Mother Teresa, who I'm sure you'll agree was an incredible individual, driven by her desire to serve the destitute and starving in India. Faith in action is love, and love in action is service. By transforming that faith into living acts of love, we put ourselves in contact with God Himself, the prime source of universal intelligence. Let's have a look at the 3 ways in which you can discover a purpose that is unique to you. Curiosity, the things we are naturally curious to learn more about in our spare time. This is often a strong indication of our interests and a signpost to where we would find the greatest satisfaction and joy if more of our daily activities were involved in this area/field. 47 page. A cause. Notice which issues arouse your passion or anger. Your deeper self will find liberation though expressing its opinions. You will feel energized when you make a commitment to serve in some capacity to heal those situations by using the expertise you have already acquired, business skills, writing abilities, speaking talents, previously acquired skills etc. to advance your chosen cause. Activism, by combining your curiosity, cause and current expertise into forward movement, action, you become an activist. Your beliefs, ideals and activities become aligned, and as we already established earlier, this is a powerful force to be unleashed out into the world. When your cause and purpose is clear, others who share your vision will join you, and that is when real change happens. Just look at the likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, their Zeitgeist and more recently Thrive movements. They all began with one person or a small group of people who believed they could champion a cause and make a difference to the collective. So we can put what we have just looked at into context. I'll share with you how I came to find my purpose. Curiosity. As you're probably suspecting, I have an insatiable curiosity to learn, research and discover the hidden aspects of our human existence. Why are we here? Why is the world the way it is? What creates our physical experience and how the unseen ultimately defines our physical existence? I love it and spend a lot of time reading, researching, traveling around and interacting with truth and freedom advocates. I never tire of it, ever. A cause. When I found out that the human population has been and is still being manipulated into a form of slavery, I got angry. When I recognized that there is more to our physical reality than we perceive with our five senses, I got passionate and excited. When I realized that as humans we have the power within us to reclaim both our individual and collective sovereignty and freedom, I was inspired to make the most of my business skills and take action. Activism. Now I am in the early stages of creating an organization and network of entrepreneurs that consists of like-minded individuals who want to actively inspire and help others to deprogram from the system of control. I believe people deserve to recognize the truth, experience freedom and create prosperity in their lives. I understand that not everyone is ready for this change, but I am wholeheartedly committed to those who are. And I am so excited about the coming 4 to 5 years, as I know with every ounce of my being this is what I am here to do. To look at another example, you may have a person close to you who is suffering from diabetes as a result of a poor diet and an inactive lifestyle. After doing some research you may discover that through changing their diet to incorporate only organic, fresh natural foods complemented with herbal medicines has helped people to overcome diabetes. You become fascinated with organic and natural foods and the potential they have to reverse poor health. You become angry at the commercialized food industry for irresponsibly promoting dangerous foods that harm people's well-being and create diseases. As a result, you decide to set up a website which you update regularly, offering information that will help people become aware of the healing effects of a natural organic diet. You also seek out experts within the healthy lifestyle niche and interview them. In time you decide to create and sell an information product on your website based on what you have learned works in terms of creating a healthy lifestyle and optimizing your well-being. When it comes to activism and serving a purpose you are passionate about, you are only ever limited by your motivation and your creativity. 48 page. What about the money? The most common concern I get from people is I want to serve a purpose but I also need to make money to meet my financial commitments. How can I do both? We have already covered the fact that money is simply an exchange of energy for the value that we offer to others. In employment we have limitations of how much value we can share. Typically we only serve our boss and the organization we work. Therefore there are limitations on how much income we can earn. It will always remain capped if we work for somebody else unless that company offers exciting career progression and remuneration package to match. When we start serving our purpose, very rarely can we jump straight out of our daily job straight into our personal projects, unless you have sufficient resources behind you. So usually a person has to ease out of their current job by working on their creative project part-time until they are making enough money to let their old job go so they can focus 100% on doing what they love. When it comes to reaching out and serving a cause, you don't have to be limited by where you live. Thanks to the internet, you essentially have 1.5 billion people online searching for information, answers and solutions to their problems, as well as seeking out communities of like-minded individuals. Your task is to communicate, that is market, what your mission is and how you can help them. Once we have found a cause or purpose to serve, our job is to learn, research, explore and discover everything we can within the field. This is why it is important for our purpose to arouse curiosity, because we will not be inspired to acquire knowledge in an area that holds no interest to us. The aim is to share what you learn and your personal experiences with others in such a way as to enlighten, empower, educate or entertain them. It really is a lot of fun as long as your intent is to serve and not to exploit the attention of others simply to make money or gain recognition. Generating an income in exchange for the value you offer. This ebook really isn't about marketing and monetizing your purpose and is beyond the intent of this publication. I have simply touched on the subject to make you aware that such an option exists. There are some great materials out there on monetizing your passions, and Eben Pagan is one of the best international trainers out there. He's all about value-based business, and because of this he has created a $100 million enterprise doing what he loves simply by giving value away for free and becoming a trusted authority in the marketing world. His free training is jam-packed with quality information that works. If you feel this direction resonates with you, then I'd encourage you to take a look at some of his free training here. I have no affiliation with his company. The idea behind creating a service-based project that assists others based on your personal interests, knowledge and skills is to become seen as a valuable trusted source of information within your field. At this point you can expand what you have to offer by offering related services, products, seminars, workshops, etc. For example, you could package and sell your knowledge in the form of information. 49-page products, e-books, training courses. Become an affiliate for a company whose products and services are aligned with your personal mission, etc. Again, you are only ever limited by your desire and creativity. For me, my business and personal projects have been my greatest teacher and pushed me to deprogram and heal my limiting beliefs at a speed that would never have occurred had I chosen to continue along my corporate path. The results we attain in life are proportionate to our ability to deprogram, transform and evolve everything we have discussed in the ebook. Therefore, in order to lead cohesive, purposeful, prosperous and joyful lives where we are paid to do what we love, we have to become open to the idea of becoming an independent creator or entrepreneur as opposed to settling for being, in effect, a wage slave working towards someone else's dream and agenda. Remember that your success, joy, prosperity and freedom is an integral part of the global shift. When you succeed, you make it that much easier for the next person. Eventually what will happen is we will collectively reach a stage of critical mass that is the 100th monkey, when the majority of the population will come to realize. They will then begin to update their beliefs, and with guidance from those who have already awoken, they will begin to implement the necessary changes toward their ultimate fulfillment. When we reach this point of critical mass, humanity will be in a position to reclaim their minds from the systems of control and create a new world into being. My fellow journeyer, this is how important you are, so don't ever let anybody suggest that you are anything less than amazing, because it simply isn't true. You were born to shine as a unique expression of universal intelligence, and it's time for you to go out and introduce the world to the incredible you. I will close with one of my favorite quotes from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, the source of universal intelligence. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God, the source of universal intelligence, that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. 50-page. Final words. I hope that you found value within this ebook, and that you are feeling inspired to rediscover the incredible you who may have got lost in amidst the distractions of everyday life. I recognize that some of what has been presented is controversial, and I am not expecting you to blindly believe in everything we have explored together. If the information resonates with you on some level, then I encourage you to do your own research and inquiry. The current evolutionary challenges we now face, there is a link provided in the appendix to some leading-edge research which will not disappoint you. I am grateful for the opportunity to have connected with you through this ebook, and would love to hear any thoughts, feedback or questions you may have in relation to any of the material covered. Alternatively, if you just want to say hello, it would be great to hear from you. If you feel others would benefit from this ebook, please share the Live as the Change blog with them, where they can also get their hands on a free copy of Discover the Incredible You. Here's to your incredible journey of evolution. With love. Blog, www.liveeastchange.com. Email, contact@liveeastchange.com. Facebook, www.facebook.com/liveeastchange. If you want to find out how you can work with me, click here. 51 page. Appendix. Section 1, link to kickstart your research and inquiry. The link below will take you to video resources that will help you understand the crossroad we collectively face in the coming years ahead. The material provided below will enable you to get a sense of the bigger picture and make informed decisions when it comes to the future of your freedom, prosperity and peace of mind. The truth resonates, and when you reach the point in your life where you recognize the truth, when you see it and when you hear it, all of your life decisions become more grounded, more real, and more concrete. www.liveeastchange.com/video documentaries. 52 page. Section 2, the chakra characteristics. Briefly, the characteristics of each of the 7 energy centers are as follows. Base chakra, first chakra. Color, red, situated at the tail of your spine, nerve plexus area. Adrenals and kidneys, relates to our will to live and supplies the body with physical energy. Balanced chakra, feeling healthy, alive, free, optimistic, happy, steady and full of vitality. Inflated, enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, selfish, greedy, overpowering, irritable and aggressive. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, anxious, a lack of confidence, lack of self-love, a lack of ability to complete things. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in problems associated with the legs, bones, adrenal glands, colon, kidneys and spinal column. Sacral chakra, second chakra. Color, orange, situated above the pubic bone, nerve plexus area. Immune system and sexual organs, relates to sensuality, sexuality, emotions, creativity. Balanced chakra, feeling healthy, open, friendly, imaginative and creative. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, self-centered, overly ambitious, jealous, distrusting and cold. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, shy, hypersensitive, untrusting, confused, uncertain, aimless. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in emotional problems or sexual guilt, and excesses in food, sex and drugs. Solar plexus chakra, third chakra. Color, yellow, situated below the diaphragm, nerve plexus area. Stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, spleen and nervous system, relates to our sense of self in the world and self-power. 53 page. Balanced chakra, self-confidence, humility, charisma, disciplined, organized. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, arrogant, forceful, demanding, attracts conflict. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, frustrated, self-deprecating, self-defeatist, pessimistic. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in ulcers, digestive problems or liver and pancreas complaints. Heart chakra, fourth chakra. Color, green, situated, chest, the heart area, nerve plexus area, heart, circulatory system, endocrine system, thymus, relates to the peace we have with ourselves and the world around us. Balanced chakra, unconditional love, allowing us to move towards humanitarian ideals. Also rejuvenation, rebirth, success, growth, prosperity, self-development. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, emotionally unstable, obsessive, jealous, spiteful, judgmental, playing the martyr. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, feeling unloved, suspicious, victimized, discriminatory and repressed. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in circulatory, lung or heart problems. Throat chakra, fifth chakra. Color, blue, situated throat, nerve plexus area. Pituitary, lower brain, left eye, ears, nose and nervous system relates to giving, receiving and speaking our truth. Balanced chakra, free communication, helping us to feel centered and happy. It also helps us to connect with our higher guidance during meditation. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, inflexible, dominating, egotistical, a self-righteous attitude. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, nervous and frightened, causing introversion, tendency to keep our thoughts to ourself, isolation, opposed to any kind of change. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in sore throats, communication problems, earaches or infections, chronic colds, thyroid problems, speech difficulties, chronic tiredness and depression. It can also lead to control of others through deceit and dishonesty. Brow chakra, sixth chakra. Color, indigo, situated in the middle of the forehead between the eyebrows, nerve plexus area. The mind relates to conceptual understanding, inner vision. Balanced chakra, intuition, imagination, visualization, concentration, insight, enlightenment, a finely tuned awareness and developed sixth sense, the ability to determine between fantasy and reality. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, lack of concentration, headaches, confusion, spiritual fatigue, psychological problems, panic attacks and depression. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, disorderly, unassertive, frightened of achieving, too sensitive to the feelings of others and unaware of what comes from the self or from our highest guidance. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in visual and sinus problems, headaches and nightmares. It can also lead to lack of clarity or overanalyzing circumstances. 54 page. Crown chakra, seventh chakra. Color, violet/white, situated top of the head, nerve plexus area, cerebral cortex, cerebrum, central nervous system, glands and the pineal gland, pituitary gland and relating hormones. Relates to the connection to our highest guidance. It influences spiritual will, inspiration, idealism, spiritual knowledge and wisdom. It is our connection with the universe. Balanced chakra, released from ego-driven desires, able to trust in our highest guidance and know that we are guided in all that we do. When this chakra is open, there will be a small amount of pressure felt at the top of the head. Enlarged chakra, too much energy flowing through, we will still receive guidance, but it will probably be ego-influenced rather than from our highest guidance. Contracted chakra, too little energy flowing through, unable to receive guidance or unsure of ourself. Not interested in anything spiritual or greater universal concepts. If this chakra is not working properly, it can result in visual and sinus problems, headaches and nightmares. It can also lead to lack of clarity or overanalyzing circumstances. Generally, the front aspects of the chakra connect to our emotional functioning, the back to our will functioning and our head chakra to our reasoning. Since the amount of energy flowing through a given chakra determines how much we use that chakra, it also determines how much the reason, will and emotional aspect associated with the chakra is used. So in order for us to create a balance of reason, will and emotion in our lives, we should aim to balance, equalize and synchronize our chakras and energy field. Remember that our energy field carries the vibration of our identity around in this world, our predominant feelings, emotions and attitudes, and can't be considered less real than our physical body, as we have already established. 55 page. Section 3, what is causing the global shift? Every 25,920 years our solar system passes through an electromagnetic energy vacuum called the photon belt for a period of 2,000 years. The ancients, shamans and philosophers have referred to these shifts as periods of enlightenment. They succeed long periods of darkness which represent a collective lack of universal knowledge and consciousness. The energy emitted by the photon belt has a greater impact on our life on Earth than we'd imagine. As our solar system is poised to enter the photon belt in the coming year, the Sun has responded to the increased exposure to photon energy with greater solar flare activity. This has had an incredible effect on all life on the planet, as everything at its most fundamental level is energy. As electromagnetic beings, our energy fields and living matrices are responding to the influx of high-frequency energetic information, photons, showering our planet right now. This is what has brought about a corresponding increase in our vibration and thus a change in the way we are starting to perceive ourselves and the world. However, this opportunity isn't without its personal and collective challenges. This changing perception of ourselves and the world has been termed the global awakening, as growing numbers begin to experience personal events and phenomena that ignite their intention to understand life's deeper meanings and how the world really works. The purpose of this astrological shift is to change the energy of the Earth plane to a higher vibration. It serves to break down the old paradigm of darkness and ignorance on our planet, so that the cycle of a new paradigm can emerge, allowing humanity and the planet to raise itself to higher levels of awareness, consciousness. Despite the control system's desperate attempts to maintain collective ignorance and advance their agenda for control over greater areas of our lives, its days are numbered. Anything with a fear-based vibration will not be able to survive this increase in vibration, energetic information, as our planet prepares to enter the photon belt. Copyright 2012 LiveEastChange.com